Welcome, everyone. We have an awesome show for you here tonight. We're going to be talking all about the history of this Lightcraft technology, and been digging a lot into this Lake Marabou guy and the whole history of this, and have some interesting stuff to share with the community. Lots of people talking about these triangle craft and the tech surrounding them. We're going to dig into all this tonight and go deeper and a little bit beyond what's out there and some of the mainstream and what people are seeing. So this Lake Marabou stuff starts in and what's up? I'm just going to give a quick shout out to people in the live chat. Bernard, I haven't gotten any of your emails in a while. But I have seen I got a couple of your emails a while back. But yeah, we still got to talk about getting you on for a special to talk about this. You should put together a presentation like a PowerPoint, maybe and present it for the on a Saturday. Either at the conference if you want, or when we don't have the conference on another Saturday with just everyone that hangs out that's on the team. So yeah, what's up, Solar Marshall and MK Mixers? Yeah, so let's get the show started up. This Lake Marabou stuff. Wanted to. How do I blow up this screen? How do I blow up this? All right, I can do it like that. So this history starts at Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute in 1989, where they had a graduate level course on, I believe it's graduate level, or it might be upperclassmen, juniors and seniors only, transatmospheric vehicle design. And this was the course that they taught, and this is where the concepts development came for this stuff back. It goes back to 1989, actually. Where's the, so here's the 1989 link. It makes me reload it. It's a government site. Check this out. I'll post this in the comments. People can check it out. A lot of these links are, so I got to go back. Yeah, so this is called Flights of, sorry, that's the wrong link. Sorry, that's the wrong link. This is the right link. All right, bam. And if you go to that link, you'll find the publication date 1989. This is a government site, so this is real reports. I'm not just sitting here making up crap and spewing nonsense. We're giving you real sources and real information, so you can go and verify this and read the information yourself. Propulsion systems. A lot of this stuff was, it started out with a laser-propelled transatmospheric vehicle. So this laser-propelled propulsion stuff. And this developed eventually into, through the 90s, according to what I've found, it led to this laser-propelled transatmospheric vehicles, and there's a number of them we're going to talk about tonight and get into, and also some of their links with the blimp technology, because apparently they were applying some of these effects to blimps because they're ultralight vehicles and they're easier to propel with these effects, which are called, again, they're not called gravito-electrics. Those are made up terms. This is called electrohydrodynamics. But it goes a little bit beyond this, and we'll get into what I think what I believe is the whole developmental history behind what eventually became the TIC, what are known as these Tic Tacs. And I'll show you as we dig into this that it goes a little bit deeper beyond just this Lake Marabou stuff in 1989. So these what did we mean by, first off, a transatmospheric vehicle? This is the key word now, is transatmospheric. And using that search term, you'll get a whole bunch of interesting new hits. It's one of those great, when you stumble upon one of these new search terms and you start finding, oh my, this is what they're calling these vehicles. Well, it turns out this stuff goes back to something called the Lockheed. This is the earliest one that I can find. It's the reference to this, of course, the Lockheed A-12 program, which was the precursor to the SR-71 Blackbird, which was the Oxcart, I believe, Oxcart, right? That was the code name for the project. A lot of people don't know about this, but they had this thing called the Lockheed D-12, which I've been investigating and looking into. And it was commissioned, and its first flight was in December 1964. And this was a high altitude, high speed reconnaissance drone. So this was basically, when they found out that the Soviets were tracking the spy plane, they needed to find another way to get the spy plane close enough and then send in this drone. And then they could actually recover it and relink up with it. But not all of them got relinked up, and quite a few of them got captured or taken down. And in those early days, it's not still more coming out about it. But this is the craft that G.I. Joe kind of had this loosely based thing upon it. This was, of course, in the 1980s. I had this toy as a kid. It made me think of it when I saw that, the little, I usually see the SR-71 and you never see this little other drone craft on top. And that's because they don't want you to know that it goes back to 1964, that, the mid 60s, where they were building these first trans-atmospheric drones. And that this technology does go back beyond the 1980s and this kind of stuff, which seems to be like it was an opportunity for them to bring it out. It started to, it came out at this regular university. It already existed in these black programs. So, these skunkworks engineers obviously thought this stuff up to make where transatmospheric means going out of the atmosphere and up into the upper atmosphere. Now, there's a whole nother class when we talk about the things that can go in and out of the water and into the air and into water and then out again. And the search terms you have to look up for that is a supercavitation, because it has to do with that supercavitation technology, which is it's connected to this type of, it has some roots in this. These programs stemmed off similar research projects. So when you look up McDonnell Douglas you find McDonnell Douglas and Rockwell Aerospace were two of the companies that were developing these transatmospheric vehicles. And this one's called the VTHL or TSTO, transatmospheric vehicle. And this is from 1984. And again, it's kind of like the space shuttle idea with, the space shuttle could land on the 747. They were envisioning these types of craft as, these spacecraft that could go into space and then come and fly down, and instead of going through crazy reentry, they could like safely kind of glide back to Earth and be recovered and reused, so that they could save money. And it was an idea that was used and experimented with, and in a lot of these secret programs, these vehicles had hydrodynamic, or these directed energy beamed pulses that could literally guide them. And a lot of this technology is built into this stuff that you don't know about or don't see, but it dates back to these black projects that are all coming out of the woodwork. But again, the major mainstream physics and scientific community doesn't, see any interest in this kind of stuff so much. It's not like hardcore physics and math and stuff. There is a lot of that in the technical articles if you dig into some of this stuff, but that's a lot of that stuff's still classified. You know, and we're trying to get access to that. And once we have more documentation on that, we'll make it available. I'm going to start up a thing with my website soon to start, you know, making a membership deal so where I can start monetizing some of this. And because I don't want to do Patreon, I don't want to give anything to a third party. And I'm going to start setting up my website to get where people can sign up for membership programs and get access to these more documents and more information on this as we continue to compile and do our research. I was watching David Wilcock. That's why this came up. He did a stream 3 days ago on this TR-3B and flying triangles, and he claimed that they were all part of the stealth blimp program and blamed it all on stealth blimps, which was an interesting perspective. And he used a couple things that came from, I could tell that, you know, maybe some of his people have been watching some of my research and it's been getting to him. So that's good. You know, I've criticized David Wilcock for making a lot of false predictions and doing a lot of woo-woo type stuff in the past. But if he continues to cover good technology and, you know, hopefully someday give credit to some of the research that we're doing here, I'll maybe leave him alone a little bit more. You know, I won't criticize him so much. You know, and that goes for other people too, like Jeremy Corbell, who seems to be, you know, insulting the whole intellectual and scientific community with this Bob Lazar nonsense, and his insistence that it's real, but your refusal to debate anyone or talk to anyone outside, you know, the physics realm about this, and keep that all that discussion out of the mainstream media. And I really think that it's almost like the Manhattan Project, where information was highly censored, you know, for years from the public. I almost think that there's something like this going on right now with this technology. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that and some of these ideas. I'm going to show some videos off, if you guys don't mind. Leak Marabou. How's everyone doing out there tonight? Anyways. We're doing good. I think I have to go like that. I have Sky actually here. He just joined. And I sent out an email to people, and we'll have like a thing on this tier of donors. So if you're in the top circle, you'll automatically get the invite to these back doors to these streams, so you can be on our panels for our analysis and discussion of this kind of stuff, because this is fun stuff, and we're digging into a lot of this is new. It's not really well known or talked about. It's not like super classified, I don't think. Some of the stuff we're going to get into probably is leaning on that side of there are classified programs surrounding this that they don't want, you know, the public to know, like how far that they've gotten and how far we really are. But I'm curious about these Tic Tacs and these craft, and I want explanations for, you know, I want explanations for these things, and I seek my own explanations. And nobody in the mainstream is talking about the technology. You know, Neil deGrasse Tyson is rolling his eyes at this whole community, and the scientific community is pretty much doing the same at all this stuff that's getting in the news. They view it as like tabloid news, and they're just like, oh, the news has just gone downhill so much that they just let anything get published these days.
Yes, all those scientists and warrant officers and officers in the Navy, they just don't know what they're talking about, even though they have direct access to the radar logs. What do they know?
I know, it's crazy what you see going on in the scientific community. It's just like what happened with the Catholic Church in the days of, you know, Galileo, where the priests just refused to look through his telescope. They said, no, you're wrong, and I don't care what you're trying to show me as empirical evidence.
But you see, they have this textbook that says they're wrong.
But look, let's get into physics and show them textbook why they're wrong, and some of the physics that are involved in this, because this is, you know, the stuff that, you know, a lot of my viewers are really interested in about, and they come here for. So that's what, let's talk about this. So we had, you know, everyone knows about what's been out in the mainstream media, right? So this is from Collective Evolution. This was all over, you know, the UK Express, you know, all these tabloid kind of magazines, and even I think this was in the New York Times, wasn't this the Sal Pays Navy patents thing in the New York Times? And I'm going to get Brett Tingley on soon. I can't wait, because this is like kind of broke the story for, you know, getting talk about this out into the mainstream media. It's because it's like, yes, in fact, the Navy is funding DARPA projects to look into, you know, whatever they can think up, explain this type of technology and how it works. So they're literally funneling millions of taxpayers' dollars into these programs to figure out how this technology works. Yet, you know, there's still scientists out there trying to deny that these things are real, that, you know, they roll their eyes at all this stuff. Is this just posturing? I mean, according to them, it's kind of like I'm trying to figure it out. Is this just, because if you take that perspective, this is all just posturing. You know, it's all just faking to the enemy, that you know, it's basically like a bluff to the Russians and the Chinese. Like, yeah, we got this technology, you know.
Yeah, but it's
But
kind of
it's not without proof.
It's a bad bluff, because if
it's a bad bluff, because because there's no proof that you have it. It's like you should be showing this stuff off, and maybe that's what they kind of did with this. It's like a veiled intelligence way of showing the enemy that, yes, you know, these things are probably ours, because, you know, I don't know.
well, no, it's a bad bluff, because if they were being operated by the U.S., why would they interrupt a carrier group training mission? Why would they do all these things? Why would they risk their prototype?
It could be.
Why would they risk their prototype getting shot down by a Sea Whiz?
Yeah, maybe they were testing out against our own Navy in you know, a drill that they didn't want them to know about, and they've kept it classified for this whole it could be whole part of like a bigger intelligence op. We don't even know. It's just crazy when you have the Pentagon giving you know, Susan Go of the Pentagon's, you know, office, giving all these contradictory statements, and man, she's caused quite a storm with all that nonsense. And that, you know, let's just so again, you search for her and you try to find her, and it comes up with Susan Gohe. You know, it keeps coming up with this. You guys, you know about this? Is the Pentagon? They're giving contradictory statements. Like, you know, they can tell people know it's just like their whole position surrounding all this UFO stuff is just a whole bunch of contradictory nonsense and like stonewalling, and it's just like, come on. Like, everyone wants the truth, and I don't know if our senators in Congress have the balls and gusto to stand up, and you know, or even the intelligence to know like what to ask for and what to look for. That's why I put together my briefing and talked about all the technologies and what's come out and through FOIAs, if you research and know this stuff.
The problem is that the senators and congressmen don't have an economic or political incentive to investigate it, and in fact they have all the political incentives to ignore it.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's true. The political incentives is just like, oh, you can't touch this issue. But there might be some economic incentives if, you know, you get involved with this. I just have a feeling that the commercial application for a lot of this technology, once it comes out of these black programs, is going to be quite lucrative.
Oh, so yeah, you're right. You're right.
And of course, it's not just lucrative, but it's also in the interest of national security and the interest of our nation, that we should be, you know, training the next generation of, you know, we created Space Force. Where's our Starfleet? You know,
Well, you're not wrong, but the thing is, looking at it from the perspective of a congressman or a senator, right? It's incredibly risky, and the potential benefits aren't really quantifiable, and they're very far from assured. So,
Let me
looking at it from the perspective of a bureaucrat or senator, congressman, whatever, they're just going to look at the go, yeah, I mean, there might be a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but I don't know that, and it's a heck of a challenge to get to the end of the rainbow. So I'm not interested.
So I want to talk about these ideas and some of the things that are going around. So these TIC craft, right? Let me I'm bringing up this right now so I can see the there's the folder. I got a bunch of these videos that I posted earlier, and I'm going to play some of them.
LTI is a new high-tech startup committed to providing low-cost access to space through the use of beamed energy propulsion. This technology is 20 years in the making and is now ripe for commercialization. The exciting thing about this company is we have the 3 key elements to success.
This is Leek Mirabeau's daughter.
We have a revolutionary space travel
I don't want to get copyright violation, but
3 simultaneous world records for the highest altitude, the longest flight, and the heaviest vehicle to be lifted on a beam of laser light. The following footage captures 3 of these record-breaking flights. With independent sponsorship, LTI has moved laser launch technology out of the realm of exclusive government research into the commercial launch arena.
Or so they thought.
Our successful flights to proprietary improvements in the design of both the launch stand and the Lightcraft vehicle itself.
Did you hear that? They said they thought that they were bringing this out of the black programs back in the 90s. You were wrong. This is like a very primitive version. They spin this thing up to give it angular momentum so that it can stay stabilized, and then they shoot it with a ground-based laser.
4, 3, 2.
This is like from the 80s or 90s. I think it might have been from the late 80s at Worcester. This was I think Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute. This is where Lake Mirabeau's from.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Apparently they thought this all up and came up with this at the at Rensselaer Polytech. Here's a video of it. You can actually see it. Looks like the gimbal craft. Very similar.
Squarely upon doubling its current altitude record to capture 500 feet or more within the next 6 to 12 months.
So you got that. Where's the other one?
To achieve the dreams of science fiction, to boldly go beyond our solar system, we will have to revolutionize space propulsion. In a few isolated labs, Dr. Lake Mirabeau carefully hones tiny prototypes of a vehicle unlike anything ever put into space. Mirabeau imagines spacecraft propelled by powerful laser beams.
A high-powered pulsed laser beam comes in the backside here, reflects off this parabola, and focuses inside of the engine here. The light is focused to such a huge intensity that it just breaks down the air here and blasts out a very strong shock wave. And in so doing, propels the model forward in a series of pulses. The temperatures inside here, when the laser is on for about 18 microseconds, are of the order of 10,000 to 30,000 Kelvin, which is 4 to 6 times hotter than the surface of the sun.
Aspects of Mirabeau's design go back to the 1950s, including its flying saucer-like shape. His innovation is to use an energy beam as propulsion, eliminating the burden of a spaceship having to lift vast amounts of fuel above the atmosphere. Mirabeau is using a laser developed by the now defunct Strategic Defense Initiative, known in the 1980s as the Star Wars program.
Okay.
The
laser
Star
pointed
Wars
upward,
program.
A high platform must be maneuvered overhead to block the beam. This laser is so intense it could accidentally cripple a satellite orbiting above.
Copy 5.
Boom.
Steve, you arming? Copy. Let's go for it. 15 seconds.
Yeah, so they had to borrow this laser from the Navy to do these experiments. And the Navy let them do it. And then they said, we want this technology. And this was like in the 90s or the late 80s. I don't know the exact date on this film. I would love to get, none of these people can talk. They're all bound to leak. Mirabeau is like bound to secrecy till like 2027 or something. He won't come on the show. He won't present at APEC. He won't talk. He's like gag ordered. Really weird.
With a jet of air, Mirabeau spins the tiny spacecraft like a top to give it added stability.
10 seconds.
Copy, 10 seconds.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
The laser beam is made up of infrared light. As the beam pulses, it strips air molecules of their electrons, creating an explosive plasma that propels the craft from below.
That's it. Gosh.
How about that?
Nice catch.
What do you figure? 40 feet?
Yeah, that was about 40 feet.
40 feet.
Maybe 45.
Ready to go again?
5,
Yeah, they
The
do.
space shuttle.
They did quite a bit of
Its
tests.
efficiency would be of the order of 1,000 to 3,000 seconds. So we have a factor of 2 to 6 better fuel efficiency than the shuttle. That translates to smaller fuel tanks, smaller structures, smaller engines. Everything shrinks enormously compared to the shuttle, which is, say, 90% propellant at liftoff.
A modified version of Mirabeau's Lightcraft, now being studied by NASA, would get off the ground using helium and a type of low-thrust rocket engine. It would trade lasers for less intense microwave energy, generated by a satellite that collects power from the sun. As the satellite nears the launch site, it aims, then releases the microwave beam. The Lightcraft diverts a portion to its perimeter for propulsion and uses the rest to create an air spike, a shockwave that literally melts away air resistance. To fuel the rest of its journey, the Lightcraft would use superheated gas, accelerated by powerful electrical and magnetic fields. Hurtling above the atmosphere, the Lightcraft would go into orbit or travel to the moon and beyond.
The vision I have for the future of beamed energy propulsion is to create a technology that could replace airlines, replace spacecraft. Imagine a global aerospace transportation system that runs on solar energy, generated in space and beamed to the vehicle in flight.
Okay. There's a lot to absorb there. And if any of these billionaires, you know, are listening or get a hold of this, Bill Gates wants to block out the sun, man. Why not build these microwave stations that could be moved into, you know, if the sun gets super intense, you know, all these people that deny global warming say that it's all based on the sun. Well, what if we have, you know, what if we had those microwave, you know, radar, these solar collection stations in space that could move in front of the sun if there's like high solar activity and block out parts of the sun. It's not, you know, like, he's the one, you know, there's a lot of scientists talking about this idea. And, you know, this is how we become type 1 civilization. This is the next step that humanity needs to take. Scientists have been talking about it. We've been like, you know, trying to show, you know, the real prophecy of what needs to come. But, you know, I don't know if I need, like.
What I find interesting with that technology is that rather than having to carry those large and expensive high-grade hydrocarbons like RP1 or liquid hydrogen, both can be dangerous. Like the gentleman was saying, we can reduce the load. And what's very tantalizing is that by using beamed propulsion energy, we can use very affordable sources of power for a vast majority of the launch in the form of nuclear or whatever. So we can use ground-based, at least at first, very affordable sources of energy to power the masers. And of course, having masers in orbit, that's a completely different technology. Now, the main hurdle that I think a lot of people run into with putting masers in orbit is that, how should I put this? It might run into political hurdles, because once you put masers in orbit, you're putting death rays in low Earth orbit that can vaporize anyone on the planet like that, right?
Yeah.
So again, just goes back to, with great power comes great responsibility. How about we just not kill people with it?
Yeah, exactly. We could just not use it for weapons, you know, just, you know, this is important, you know. There's things that could be multi-purpose as weapons. That's the problem, is like, it's all the swords to plowshares. It's like, what are you going to put in somebody's hands they can kill somebody with? Or, you know, we just ban all the guns. It's just going to be knives and other things. So these lighter than aircraft, like I mentioned, Arion Corporation, Rockwell Aerospace, and also McDonnell Douglas, we're doing the research into this kind of idea. And this is, I believe there are a number of stealth blimps. There's been a number of sightings, the Hudson Valley cases, the you know, the Phoenix lights. We know that there's blimps going on. We wanted to get that guy from JP Aerospace on to talk. Another thing about Susan Go, she's up. Is this how you spell her name? In the email that I have for her, it's GOPUPH, which I don't know. That's a weird discrepancy, but maybe it's to hide her real name.
Well, I do know that Dirigible Technology is very promising. The Dragon Dream team have been working on their dirigible for a very long time. The potentiality for much increased fuel efficiencies, decrease in latency in terms of transporting goods. The benefits are very, very tangible and can be realized. The main holdback for Dirigible Technology is that the U.S. federal government banned the use of hydrogen in dirigibles, and that was as a result of the Hindenburg incident. Now we know now that that fire was created by the usage of the type of paint that they used over the dirigible, coupled with the frame, which created a shock, a spark, a static spark, right? But the point of the matter is that helium is just too expensive, too precious, and too finite, and just too expensive to use in a dirigible.
Yeah,
So
it is.
But if we could legally use hydrogen again, and we have the technology to make it safe, then it would be a boon to air transport.
Yeah, that law needs to be renegotiated for our. I mean, just think about it. That should have been a fire investigation. There should have been, new standards put in place, but instead they were just like, "Oh my God, let's outlaw it altogether." It's like we can make these things safe and safer and useful. You know what I mean? There's still like airplane accidents and stuff too, but yeah, you're right. Hydrogen is way easier to produce than helium.
Yeah, well, and what's really cool about hydrogen is that if you have to park the dirigible for any duration of time, right? One of the really cool things about hydrogen, especially if you're using it for a dirigible, you don't have fuel tanks anymore. You can literally just draw hydrogen gas from your dirigible, combine it with atmospheric oxygen and a prime mover, and bam, there's your source of energy. You have this giant fuel tank, and you would only use but not even a percentage to transport it to any reasonable distance. And so we've nixed batteries, fuel tank, all that gone. Our fuel is lighter than air. Provide me a source of energy, an energy source that has negative energy density.
For real. So, who's seen this video? This is the latest Jack Sarfati sent me. Trying to get Jack on. I sent him an email with an invite link. I hope that him or Keith Wanser. I got to talk to that guy. He presented at the Estes Park conference and he was great along with Jack. Really impressed me with some of their stuff. And then when Jack came on the APEC conference with David Chester, that was even better. The APEC conference is the Alternative Propulsion Engineering Conference that we hold. We have a conference coming up this weekend. Actually, let me take this opportunity to plug APEC. You can go to altpropulsion.com. Altpropulsion.com. And if you click on the events button, you will see that this Saturday, 2 days from today, we have a May Day conference. May 1st is May Day. We'll be having Tom Vallone on first to talk about electrogravitic and electrokinetic propulsion. This is going to be a good opportunity. Maybe we can help sort out, there's been these anomalies with this T.T. Brown experiment. There's still debate on it today. DARPA's still funding the M drive, and which is like these anomalous effects that occur, and these systems, asymmetric capacitors, and there's a whole bunch of literature on this, and it's completely ignored and downplayed by the mainstream physics community. They cite guys like Martin Tajmar, Dr. No, who says it's all experimental error and chasing ghosts, and it's errors in how they set up their experiment or how they set up their measurements, and nothing more to look at here. So there's quite a bit of debate going in the field over this. And then what is electrogravitics? Fermilabs put out that video where Don Lincoln says that it's not even a real word. So again, this should be an interesting presentation for those of you that want to learn more about these things. Tom Vallone's been in this a while, but well, we're always skeptical of everyone, and all of our guests, but welcoming, not abrasive, and we try to invite, make a welcoming environment to bring as many good people on as as we can, and continue to have those who are interested in contributing to the community back as resourceful, presenters. And this is an open community, despite, any kind of personal differences in opinion or any kind of thing like that. We want to keep this, I want to keep this open, completely open. So Glenn Tony Robertson is coming on after Tom Vallone. Tony Robertson is one of my heroes. He's like Superman to me. If you guys don't know who Tony Robertson is, he ran the STAFE conference. STAFE, and the STAFE turned into the STAFE 2 conference, and this was a big conference that was run for years. Not staff, a STAFE. There's an I in there. Okay, it's the I can't even find nothing on it. Holy crap. They probably wiped the whole. So this is like one of those places where the DARPA contracts. Oh my God, I can't find nothing on it. I can't find the STAFE conference. So you can't find nothing on this anymore, which is really weird, but this is like, oh man, this is where all like, and you can't find nothing on it. This is all football and stuff.
I just wanted to say real quick, because some people in the comments were concerned about the safety of hydrogen and oxygen. You have to understand, Zeppelins are very safe. In World War I, Zeppelins were used as reconnaissance craft, and they were shot by all sorts of small arms fire, tracer rounds, explosive artillery shells, incendiary rounds, you name it, they shot at the Zeppelins. And even though they were leaking their hydrogen gas, they just had such a profuse access that no matter how much they tore up the Zeppelin, no matter how many incendiary rounds they fired in it, they couldn't get it to ignite or leak out fast enough to bring them down, because they worked. And that's because in order to get an explosion, you have to have a correct, you have to have the correct pressure and air to fuel ratio. And there's, when you have a pure hydrogen gas environment inside this Zeppelin, even with profuse leaking, that turbulence and that lower pressure precludes ignition, and especially it precludes a self-sustaining propagation of ignition. So Zeppelins are safe. This much we know.
I don't know, man. Hydrogen's scary stuff, man. I did that chemistry experiment in 7th grade where, we made some with electrolysis, and my chemistry teacher blasted that, put a match over the top of that, test tube. Kind of, it's got a good demonstration, man, about the reactivity of hydrogen with oxygen in the right environment.
Oh, yeah.
But
well, if you think that's bad, if you were to break the double bonds that hydrogen gas normally exists in and create monatomic free hydrogen radicals, if I recall correctly, it releases many hundreds of percents more energy than standard double bonded hydrogen.
Well, now we're talking. But yeah, back to Glenn Robertson is he's a hero of mine. He ran the STAFE conference at like section F, which was the propulsion engineering conference. It was like one of the only propulsion conferences around, other than like, I don't know, the Estes Park conference. I gotta get all the dates down for all this and really trace down the history, because this is, if you're going to find black projects that went black and stuff, it's all inside that. It was all inside that stuff. It used to be publicly available, and you could find a lot of that stuff. But just judging by what I'm finding on Google, I'm going to have to go to DuckDuckGo, because Google, the NSA has really done a good job of hiding key information and technologies. But let's get back to the technologies and stuff, and talk more about so T.T. Brown wasn't the only one. T.T. Brown was in the 1920s, but also, did you know that in 1928, Nikola Tesla registered a controversial patent? The patent claimed to be the world's first flying saucer. So Tesla used to talk about aliens. He used to believe in flying saucers and UFOs, and he used to claim to communicate with aliens. Even a lot of weird stuff going on in Tesla's past, if you really dig into it. But apparently he patented this flying saucer and talked about, how this worked in terms of, again, it's a magnetohydrodynamic craft. It uses this whole idea. So we're finding more and more that some of these ideas of this, propulsion via like creating, using electromagnetic waves as propulsion go back to Nikola Tesla. They go back to the 1920s, and then we started getting into. I really wish Sean was here to join us. I sent him the link, and I tried to get him on, but we've been going over a lot of this stuff and diving in. Let me go back to our database drive here. This is a database that we have on everything that's related to anti-gravity. Where's the thing on? I'm going to have to search for this. So we're talking about the Tesla patents. Oh, yeah. Let's go to so these were the Electrical Experimenter and Scientific Invention magazines. And there's some gems in some of these that we found. These were published, in the 1920s. And they talked about underwater welding. This is what Navy SEALs did. This is that was like the frogmen that were the precursors to the Navy SEALs. They did underwater welding. And so this is a lot of the classified stuff was like in these magazines that openly talked about, when they were first theorizing these ideas and experimenting with these things. It goes back to the 1920s, and then Luigi Rota was a French inventor and scientist. You gotta search Rex Research for Luigi Rota, otherwise you find the wrong thing. So yeah, this guy, Luigi Rota, he was all into this Tesla stuff. This was back in the day that they had this electric magazine, and you could literally write letters to Nikola Tesla and have him respond, and it was all published in these open magazines. This information was like openly talked about, and it was a whole new era, an age of exploration and scientific understanding of how this stuff worked. And there's a lot of really interesting, it's not like a physics textbook where there's all the equations and the practical knowledge. There is some of that stuff though, like a little bit, but again, this was like the early days of it, but it has some roots. If you really want to go far back, there have been, there's been a drive of people pursuing this stuff, and real serious scientists and inventors, people who changed the world, took this stuff seriously. So it's kind of ridiculous that more of our scientists aren't taking these things seriously, because it's this type of imagination that created Nikola. That Nikola Tesla had this type of imagination, and he changed the world with it because he had that drive to really, push for experimentation. And I see that in a lot of the members of our group, like Jeremiah and Mark, who are even so. These guys are really pushing to understand and do this stuff and build it and test it out in the lab. So we're going to have an update on the lab from Falcon Space on Saturday too, which will be awesome as well, because there's been so much new stuff going on behind the scenes that me and Jeremiah have to like talk every day and go over stuff, and we can't even we can't even share it all with the public yet, because we want to research this first, and we think we're close to being the ones to crack some of this stuff, at least in the public sphere. I can't imagine that with the trillions of dollars and the brains that they have inside DARPA and some of these black programs, that they haven't figured this out already. It just seems kind of ridiculous. So let's get on into that. So if we get into some of these technologies, and this is where I'm going to go. We're 50 minutes in. All right, we're going to get into Luigi Rota. Mario's brother figured out how to gravitate with the super wing, the power wing, right? The P wings from Mario 3. Anyways, I digress. I'm just trying to relate. Younger kids probably don't even know what I'm talking about. They probably never played Mario Brothers 3 for NES. Oh yeah, that was the shit back in the day. So let's get into some serious stuff. So there's a point inside the vacuum. So if we you know, when you talk about sending these pulses through the vacuum and these electrical experiments and all this stuff, there's a point where you shock through the vacuum, and it can create. So again, we talk about moving the laser from a ground-based or a space-based, you know, station, and we put the laser right on the craft itself, and think of more efficient ways to generate lasers. So when we combined all that and we really get into the research, we find out that it's the point where it's at is these polariton lasers, and the principle that's involved in these pumping states, and the idea of these optical microcavities, which act as parametrical optical generators. All these key search terms will find you plenty of physics literature related to research that's on the cutting edge of where I believe this technology is at and going currently. In a lot of it's Chinese publications too, so it shows that the Chinese are, you know, obviously onto this next generation of tech. If they, you know, this goes back to 1967 with these types of transatmospheric drones. There's more than just this. Okay, this is out in the public. There's more than this idea that was put in this patent, and maybe that this Sal Pei's patent had things changed around to hide the real technologies, and that's kind of what I think is happening with some of this stuff. Because now, let me bring my background screen back on. So thank you for this live stream. Yes, guys, we are live, and I am reading the comments, so everyone knows we're all here. And I have to do this every once in a while so people know that this isn't pre-recorded. We're talking about this exciton polariton lasers and exciton polaritons and these specialized two-dimensional surfaces. And I think that the specialized two-dimensional surfaces are super important because they appear in in virtually all the historic literature about, you know, Biefeld-Brown effect. Asymmetric capacitors are these surfaces, these layered materials, and the layer in what happens, the physics that happens in these two-dimensional surfaces is different than, you know, there's quantum mechanics going on here. There's environments that are suitable, like graphene, and like graphene's shown to be like one of these two-dimensional super surfaces with all these crazy applications that you find when you start researching this stuff. This is where I was told the field was at years ago when I was diving into this, and this is what, you know, people sent me for, you know, like, if you want to understand the real physics of how this stuff works on, you know, the next level technology of these skin coatings, these specialized skin coatings that they're developing, and these specialized metals that produce these fields around the craft, which can literally warp space-time, create white holes around the craft, a metamaterial environment where they can rip through the fabric of space-time using like basically generated light. They ride on light. And this is, you know, it takes this whole idea of Lightcraft to like a whole nother level when you get into some of these concepts. Watch this video. This is about graphene layers and Dirac cones and the quantum states. Graphene presents an uncommon behavior. The energy bands form two circular cones connected one with the other at their extremities. These are called Dirac cones. There is no gap, unlike the insulator, but no partially filled band, unlike metals. Due to these cones, graphene electrons behave in a very peculiar way. They all have the same velocity and absolutely no inertia. It's as if they have no mass, similar to what the theory of relativity predicts for a particle traveling near the speed of light. Right? At the speed of light. Let's apply a voltage between the graphene and a metallic layer separating by a very thin insulator. So, by the way, an insulator is like a dielectric. For a given direction of the field, the upper cone fills up, and this means that the electrons are added to the system. For the other direction, the lower cone is depleted. This means that the electrons of another kind are added, called holes. And those electron holes are key because they're basically like antimatter, anti-electrons. In Dirac's theory, like he viewed the antimatter as like a hole that would appear when you took away the matter. Like it's the opposite in like this particle physics notion of it. So this is a way to generate antimatter on demand with much less when this antimatter, these polaritons form, they perform exciton polariton pairs. So you pump electrical fields into this two-dimensional field layer, and it produces these Dirac cones or polaritons, where the vacuum here becomes polarized so much that it literally you produce these negative energy states. This is how the surface coatings of these advanced craft operate, and this is like the next generation up from this Lake Marabou stuff, I believe, where they put the lasers on the craft, and then they started developing better and better lasers to do this, and then they got down to the nanoscale level, and they got to a point where they realized where they actually hit the matrix. Because there's this whole idea that we live in a simulation, and that at least if it's not a simulation, that one of the guys who worked on this too, that I've been researching lately, actually the last day and a half since I had Katie on the other day, and Katie had brought up this Frank Wilczek character and said he won a Nobel Prize in 2004, and then kind of like went dark for a decade and didn't really publish much, and that's not, normally when someone wins a Nobel Prize, they publish a lot of stuff and keep going on with a lot of research. But there's like a gap here between 2008 and 2014 where there's nothing like really published in the literature that you can find. So you start digging through those years, and I'm finding that he's involved in research into axions, anions, time crystals, and all the same stuff that I'm saying is like key we've been saying is key to this technology, to getting it to understanding how this, getting a physics model of how this technology actually can work. And some of this stuff might have been developed and attached to stealth blimps, as we mentioned, because the hydrogen and these blimps are perfect test beds to do this, because if things go wrong with the propulsion system, your vehicle doesn't crash. It's still floating, So I think a lot of these craft are lighter than air vehicles. As we talked about, they're lighter than air vehicles. A lot of them are drones, so they're unmanned, and they have I don't know. What are your thoughts, Sky?
Well, so hydrogen as a gas is an incredibly efficient reaction mass. So if you wanted to use thrusters as a backup in something like a nuclear thermal rocket or propulsion system, or whatever your energy source is, using hydrogen gas as a reaction mass is very, very, very efficient, because it has a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like when you fill a Stirling engine with helium gas rather than atmospheric air, you're going to get a higher delta T over delta P, right?
Yeah.
Well, the same applies when you go to hydrogen. The reason why they don't use hydrogen gas, which would be 3 times more effective than helium gas, is because it causes metal embrittlement and a whole slew of issues. But if you're using hydrogen gas as a reaction mass in a rocket, you're going to get a much higher ISP for a given amount of mass.
Absolutely, I agree. I just sent Todd has this comment. I saw Todd, I just sent you an invite if you wanted to come on, because I know this is your area of expertise, and I'd love to hear it from you. He mentioned I should point out that this electron hole, right? This idea of this electron hole is an anti-electron, which is called a positron. So positron, anti-electron. This whole idea. So this idea called the Schwinger limit in quantum electrodynamics. This is all within the laws of physics. Everyone who talks about, all these things are defined and breaking the laws of physics. No, they're not. We know, if you know physics and you understand physics and you're into this world, then you understand that there's people out here who can explain this stuff, and we're on the verge of this technology becoming public. I really feel that there's more to this going on than we know about, and they're trying to condition us slowly and let it come out slowly somehow. But I don't know. I just know that this is a good time for us, even if that's not true. It's a good time for people like us to invent the field. If it's not there, then we're just imagining it, and I'm just crazy. Then that's maybe even better. That's actually, I would like that situation better. If I was just completely crazy in my imagination, my conspiracy theories that the government has this technology and they've been developing it, that would be the best case scenario, because that would mean that I'm truly am a crazy genius and that I thought this all up myself. And that, this isn't just, my imagination working, I don't know. That would mean I'm truly a genius, right? Because I find the information for this, and it's, it's out there. I don't know. I don't call myself a genius, but I have my moments. I have my moments of absolute stupidity as well. So, I wish we lived in the days back before the internet. Imagine if Einstein lived in the days of the internet and we had like all his screw ups on film too. That would be, that would say something. Experimental clues and discovery. So yeah, so the positrons are really an interesting thing, phenomenon, and positron it's like an anti-electron. It's got the same mass but the opposite charge and the opposite it's opposite antiparticle. So but the thing is, when positrons and electrons in a free situation, if a free positron hits an electron, they annihilate and they create gamma rays, right? Whereas in this two-dimensional environment of this metamaterial or this graphene or this two-dimensional material, what happens is that that's released as phonons to the lattice. And this is why what we believe is happening, and to explain the lack of gammas in the cold fusion experiments. And this is a now well accepted like theory 30 years later, after cold fusion was ridiculed and thrown under the bus and just shunned and ignored by all of mainstream physics. NASA is finally coming out with more and more research being done into this. Of course, this latest thing from 2020 with NASA that was published last December on cold fusion was headed by one of the guys that spoke at MIT in 2014 that I went and met, Larry Forsley. And Larry Forsley is he's onto it, man. He knows he's onto it. He's really bright. He's on the top of his game with this, that he's engaged with this cold fusion community of very brilliant and well, educated and talented scientists that have been chasing this down diligently. And this deserves a Nobel Prize, if anything, all the people that were involved in this. I can't wait till the day we see that happen and cold fusions give. And I'd like to see Pons and Fleischmann be given a posthumous Nobel Prize for their discovery, and because it's in how they faced 30 years of ridicule from the scientific community who struggled for an explanation to explain this. And now we have one, that's, it's Bremsstrahlung. It's like Bremsstrahlung, right? So this is something interesting physics students can learn about. Bremsstrahlung radiation is the same idea. It's breaking radiation, and it's when this high energy electron gets detached from an atomic nucleus, and is this Bremsstrahlung radiation? Is this what I'm thinking of? This might be something else. I'm thinking of, there's also Cherkanov radiation, which we talked about too. And it's another idea of, it's kind of like still kind of a mystery, but it's explained through this lattice. It's explained through entanglement, really, quantum entanglement. And it's as crazy as that sounds, because it's like a lot of these scientists now making fun of all this talk, like, because this quantum entanglement's turned into this buzzword within these communities. And it's something that these people throw around all the time to, to talk about things that aren't really quantum entanglement. But when you have a bunch of these bound states, they become entangled states, and then you have a radioactive decay, like this, this matter-antimatter pair that annihilates. Instead of annihilating and creating these two high energy gammas, that energy is distributed among the entangled lattice structure. And that's as best as I can explain this right now. I'm sure I have better explanations for this, and I've talked to people more knowledgeable about this that understand this better. And I wish I could have them on right now to kill it on the stream. But hey, well, whatever. I'll just butcher it. I'm trying to explain this to, like, I don't know how much I'm trying. He said, I can explain it better, but I love you. Hell yeah, man. I wish you come on the show. I'm going to open this up. We're on the second hour now. I'm going to throw the link out there for people that want to join. I would love no names needed to watch videos. You don't have to share your name. You can put a fake name and come on and share some some physics talk with us if you can explain this better. But hell yeah. So the idea is that you create these really high energy states, and if you concentrate them and do the waves right, you can create these high energy states in a lattice structure across the whole craft. And the idea is that Frank Wilczek, and I encourage you, let's look up Frank Wilczek, because he's got some really great. He's considered one of the smartest people. I forget who had him on the show, and they said he's the smartest person they've ever talked to. And he really is. He's like absolutely brilliant. And he gives I'm trying to find the talk that he says about this, about what is everything. Explains everything. Yeah, what is reality? So go watch this. Okay. And it's by the Royal Institute. This is a great introduction to who Frank Wilczek is and some of his ideas. But all these guys, all these physicists have like the same idea, right? That it's chunky space, right? So the quantum is actually that quantum gravity can be explained by is space-time smooth or chunky? This is a good article, right? You talk about chunky space, because the idea that space-time is smooth, it really looks smooth, right? Because the way that the fabric of reality unfolds, it really has a smoothness to it, and everything just jives. It doesn't, like somehow the universe is, and if it's doing quantum computations, it's very efficient at, how it pulls everything together and holds the, whatever's going on, this ultimate law of physics, this God equation that, Michio Kaku talks about on Brian Keaton, the other day. He interviewed 2 days ago. Go and watch this too. Michio Kaku on string theory and the God equation. This is another another good one that I watched recently. Definitely go check this out. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but we'll talk about it on the next stream. And I definitely want to get in touch with these guys and talk more about these ideas. Michio Kaku was a huge inspiration to me, and his, because he did the Ancient Aliens like show and talked about he's the one that did the episode on the alien craft with the saucer. You can't even find that anymore, where he talked about like what it would be and what the physics would look like and what it would, be about. But man, he was so right, but he didn't know the whole picture of everything that was going on. Alcubierre too. So Alcubierre, he was recently interviewed on, look up Kyle Hill. You look up Kyle Hill, Alcubierre. Boom. This one was 1 week ago. And this guy kills it he's been doing these awesome videos talking about warp drives and stuff. And he's on a channel getting way more views than I am. But again, it's a different style different style production and on a whole nother level than I'm currently at right now with my capabilities. But hey, where's my camera? My camera kicked out on me. I'll get it back in a second. Give me a minute. Yeah, Travis is going to help me out with my camera and get the shot going back. There we go. Yeah, what's up? And the Sky's here too, so that's the backup camera. Yep, sweet. So hey, we got 200 people now. This is awesome. I just want to give a shout out to anyone else. I posted the link there if anyone wants to join and join the discussion and thinks they know some of this physics and can explain the warp drive stuff better than us. Again, I'm showing you videos and stuff to go to about this, but the whole idea is that space-time, these scientists believe that space-time's chunky on the quantum level, that it's not smooth, and that if we create these kinds of quantum materials that do these types of quantum effects with entanglement, then we can basically build structures that can warp the fabric of reality and space-time itself. And that's some really crazy, crazy alien stuff if it's true. And that's where I hold out for real physics and new physics and the whole idea of these, metamaterials and quasi-crystals and the spin glasses and all the stuff that, we're digging into here on this channel. This is the future. I don't know if this is as close to alien technology as I think we can get.
I can 100% back you up on this. Of all the academics that I've interacted with, the material scientists are by far the most based because they're the most grounded, most down to earth, but most importantly, they're also the most scientifically minded. Not in the sense of lay tips fedora, trust the experts, as in we're going to run the experiment because we don't know what's going to happen. They're not these pompous, physicists, theorists, etc. Right? They are very, very intimately involved with running physical experiments. They're okay with resting on not knowing. Their entire methodology and mentality is epistemologically consistent and coherent with the scientific method, rather than just being a cult of authority on what is and isn't true. So material science is really one of the last bastions of genuine scientific inquiry, methodology, and execution of testing. That having been said, I don't think waiting on academia to, put out better technology or try to flesh out their model, I don't think that's a very reliable methodology of going out about trying to advance this technology. What I would recommend is seeking out people, physicists and academics that have been shunned by the scientific community, people like Dr. Don Scott, Wal Thornhill, and the list goes on. And I would try to pick their brain to try to determine, hey, let's not just look at space-time and pure gravity-based models. Let's look at plasma-based cosmological models like what Halt and Arp talked about. Let's look at perhaps electrical models like what Dr. Don Scott is talking about. Let's inquire. Let's be genuinely inquirers into the matter, just as a lot of material scientists are when they're trying to make their cutting-edge materials technologies. Let's do the same thing for physics. Let's test. Let's look at what's happening around us. Let's test it. Let's throw stuff at the wall and let's see what happens.
So these are this electric universe people you keep bringing up. And, I was really opposed to these guys for a long time. And, because it's like this whole other counterculture science community that's, they're basically rejecting all of mainstream science. It's like,
no, they're not. They're different, right? But what is mainstream science? Science just is. Science is just the application of the scientific method. That's it. There is no mainstream. There's academia, sure. There's a lot of politics and money in academia.
There's so much politics in science, and to create this idea of this mainstream and that this is that you're being skeptical if you question. There's the skeptic community, I feel, is like used in certain cases. It's like, we're going to be skeptical of certain things, but we're not going to be skeptical of other things.
Then they're not too skeptical now, are they?
And we're not going to call this skepticism. We're going to call this skepticism, but it's really so political. Once these skeptics get big, they become like all bought out and like politicized around certain issues. When you try to get answers on key things where it's like super controversial, it's like they're always going to side with this, like,
well, I
don't know.
I'll tell you why they do it. No, I'll tell you why, because it's really easy to masturbate your ego, especially in front of a crowd of people, to go, the authorities say this, they get dunked on, here's my fedora, give me money. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, that's really nice and entertaining, bro. And you certainly entertained a lot of normies, but did you actually advance the field? Did you make genuine inquiry? Were you genuinely skeptical, or were you just out to masturbate your ego? We all know what the answer is. The fact of the matter is, there are hundreds of plasma physicists right now that have a functionable model. They have many functionable models of cosmology that have been in many ways more accurate at making predictions at some of what we observe in the universe than the standard pure gravity-based model. And that's just the way it is. Now, I'm not saying that their models, I'm not saying that their model's correct, but I'm saying, hey, are we scientists or are we academics and politicians? If we're genuine scientists, we have to recognize that they could be right. The fact of the matter is that quantum mechanics and pure gravity-based models like relativity, they don't work together. They're incompatible with each other.
Right.
And
there's been all these theories offered for how to resolve the differences, but we're not there yet. And anyone who claims we are is lying to themselves and the public.
Well, at the end of the day, quantum
Jesus.
mechanics has been proven time and time and time again by physical experiments, and big gravity-based relativity has been mostly observation-based rather than experiment-based.
Yeah, I just posted an example, quantized inertia, and Mike McCulloch, he's posting these alternate theories which explain, galaxy rotation without this dark matter insertion into the formula, and he gets real results and gets predictions and has people matching it to cosmological, observations of other galaxy rotations and saying, oh, wow, this is.
And let me guess, he's been shunned, hasn't he?
Shunned completely, like almost driven out of his professorship at Plymouth University over in the UK.
Do you know what happened? Do you know what happened to Holton Arp in the 1980s with his quasars and redshifts controversy? He proved that there were stars and quasars that were redshifting when they should be blue shifting, and vice versa. Do you know how academia responded?
All the good science was called pseudoscience first. I swear it was all.
They took away Holton Arp's telescope time and said you can't use the telescope or telescopes anymore. Yeah, because that's real scientific.
Well, it's people that were ahead of their times, but didn't have the theory and the understandings to prove it. Too.
Well, or no. Sometimes
a lot of this stuff gets into.
Holton Arp had the theory, he had the mathematics, he had the understanding. The problem was that he was a thorn in academia's butt because his observations were threatening their gravy train of infinite grants.
We had someone just join the stream, but they signed off. I don't know what happened to them. Guys, if you're interested in sharing information or perspectives with us, please join.
I'll say this: the Sapphire team has created elemental transmutation without they've transmutated elements without fusion or fission, and we don't know how they did it, and they're not sure either, but they did it.
Gotta bring the pressure down. Your voltage back. I bring your power back.
7 years of research and experimentation have developed unique new discoveries in the field of nuclear plasma reactions.
Go to the center button to the left. Be on top.
The Sapphire project has found the key to generating medium temperature plasmas. Sapphire can create, control, contain, sustain, and repeat a wide variety of plasma regimes. The plasma self-organizes and develops its own electromagnetic containment field. Based on these discoveries, the Sapphire project has established Orion Energy Limited to develop commercial technologies for major worldwide markets. Sapphire is a clean plasma reactor, which can generate energy, produce heat, transmute elements, and remediate radioactive waste. How does Sapphire work? We introduce hydrogen into the chamber. The anode is a metal alloy. The power going in is electrical. The reaction at the core generates heat. The heat creates steam to run a turbine to generate electricity. The hydrogen can be captured and reused. The output is electricity, the majority going to an external grid. Any surplus can be routed back to the power input. To date, after the reactions, all measurements and analysis show this to be a clean process, producing no negative radioactive side effects. In fact, note that nuclear radioactive materials are not required. Sapphire is mixing elements at the atomic level. What you are looking at is a patented design that uses atomic hydrogen in a self-organized plasma. the atomic hydrogen interacts with the other elements in the chamber, causing nuclear reactions that are transmuting elements from one to another. And these are the elements that Sapphire produced as a consequence of the nuclear reactions. So far.
Hey, I'd like to bring in Matthew. He tried to join earlier. I wanted to give you a proper introduction, man. I saw you in here earlier, and I was hoping we could get you back, man. What's up?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great, man. Having a blast, man. Tuesday night. I had a good day at work today. I gotta go finish, bang this job out tomorrow. And
nice. Yeah, no. Been watching your content for a while, man, and yeah, just wanted to jump in on the conversation. That's all.
Nice. So you like tonight's show and our talk about this, again, to recap for anyone who just joined, we kind of went over the whole history of this stuff going back to the 80s and these, stealth blimps. There might have been earlier programs with the stealth blimps, these drones that go back to the 60s, the reconnaissance vehicle, the transmedium craft, this idea of this transatmospheric vehicles, the things that go in and out of, the upper atmosphere. And then this whole microwave craft, and then moving the laser on board the craft with these new types of laser propulsion and materials, to getting down to the quantum physics of the actual skin coatings of the craft that do supercavitation, and these, that can unlock these craft that could go in and out of the water. And then I should have probably mentioned the supercavitating torpedoes, which people can look up. Oops, I don't know what happened there.
Something else that people in the comments are mentioning, they're talking about Louis Kervran's biological transmutation phenomena. Louis Kervran was a French biologist and chemist who had conducted various studies and tests looking into how organisms can obtain the necessary elements that they need for their own survival. And he looked at chickens and producing calcium for their eggs. He looked at earthworms producing phosphorus, and various organisms. And his tests were reproduced in his time, but have not been reproduced since then. However, the evidence is fairly strong that a lot of organisms, a lot of life forms, through a process that we are completely ignorant of, may be able to transmutate elements into other elements via mechanisms that we don't understand.
There's a lot of discussion on, cavitation and supercavitation, that it could be, there could be some quantum entanglement effects, because the effects that it has on metal are very similar to these cold fusion experiments. And that we're going to be talking to this guy, Bernard Conkin, who's in the chat. And Bernard does a lot of homing. He's kind of an autodidact and self-taught home alchemist experimenter, really playing around with a lot of this stuff in his home laboratory. And I saw some of these guys doing this at Tesla Tech in 2009 and claiming that they were, making, fusion happen in their microwave. And kind of hard to believe, but some of this stuff is like, it's interesting if you can create these environments where where you can get quantum entanglement to happen. There might be a new phenomenon there. It's really this new emerging area of physics that's not well understood. And yeah, it is this buzzword because there's quite a bit of research. If you get into the literature on all this stuff, there's quite a bit of research that's pointing towards, these polariton condensates, that you look up room temperature superconductivity, right? So we talk about room temperature superconductors. And look up room temperature superconductor polariton condensate. And you'll find in the literature numerous, these organic exciton polariton condensates in these lattices. These, again, lattices are two-dimensional structures that produce these quantum entangled states and room temperature superconductivity, and it's condensed light. It's not just, you know, condensed matter like a Bose-Einstein condensate. It's kind of hard to create. This is condensed light. It's trapped, and you can trap light, and then you can squeeze the light again by applying pressure to these surfaces. You know, you have these materials, and you can apply pressure to the surfaces and squeeze, you know, and create these squeezed quantum states. And squeezed quantum states are, you know, one of the things that are outlined. Sorry, squeezed quantum states, squeezed coherent states, and squeezed states of light. This is all like related, because if you get these, you know, that you trap light and you squeeze it, once you trap light, what do you do with it? Oh, we can either, you know, pump it up and build tons of it, or we can, you know, squeeze it to alter the different quantum states and properties of it so that it does different things. So you squeeze light, and it changes the Heisenberg uncertainty principle of where it thinks it is, and resolves some of these issues. So this is related to, if people want to, you know, I invited Todd to come on here and talk about it, but you can go and check. It's all outlined in his presentation that's on my channel from APEC the other week. And I encourage people to go and watch Todd Desiato's derivation of gravity from the uncertainty principle, where he goes over how to do this and all the math for the people that, you know, are into the hardcore math physics that will bore the majority of my audience and make them, my stream would never go above 200 like it is now. We just hit 201. Awesome, guys. Smash that like button and share this video. Get more people in on this conversation and talking about this technology and where it's coming to, where it's at right now, and where we're getting it to in the field. And what an awesome opportunity this is for the people who worked on this to get the recognition and the historical significance, because this is going to save humanity from our impending doom, and it needs to be declassified and brought out to the public. And maybe it has to be done in a way that, you know, we can have advantage over and make sure that we can. But the public needs more. Public needs to know about this. The more that the public knows about this, the safer we are as a nation, because it helps us understand where the future is going much better, and to understand for all these young people that are like, oh my God, this world's going to absolute shit. You know, there's so many people committing suicide because they just don't have a way out. This is the way out. And there's hope, there's light at the end of the tunnel with this technology and the emerging, you know, these paradigms in science. It's just like, it's history repeating itself. We live in the time where I'm like treated like Galileo, and these new ideas and paradigms in just even talking about UFOs, never mind new ideas in entanglement and quantum physics, which they'll claim you of just, you know, throwing around buzzwords. Oh, you're just throwing around buzzwords. This is physics you don't understand. You know, you please just listen to us and keep funding our labs. But I don't know. Maybe I'm being too rough. They don't see it from that perspective, so I have to understand it from their perspective, and that's always something I really try to do, is try to understand it from different people's perspectives. So, Matthew, let's hear more of your perspective. What do you think about the way this is?
So yeah, no, I just wanted to add in to what you were talking about before with when you're talking about the electron holes. Technically, the positrons are actually different. The positrons are the direct duals to the electrons in his equations. The holes are actually some people might say like a naive form of like a positron, but they're technically a separate model when you're looking at them. So they're not exactly analogous, but I understood where you were going.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. That's a good distinction to make. I'm trying to explain this at like a high school, like seventh grade level, and I'm not being exact with the terms, but some people understand what a positron is, and some people don't even know what a positron is, and they don't even know about, you know, that that there's annihilation and
Yeah,
production.
exactly. And the fact that you can have, I mean, like they're doing if you look at the recent LHC results and stuff like this, where they're looking at these weird quark gluon plasmas, and they're having anti-quarks paired up with regular quarks in the plasmas themselves. So you're having these you're having regular matter paired with antimatter. So they're it's
Right.
a soup of
So
regular
that's
matter
another
and
thing people
antimatter
don't
together,
understand
and
either.
they're
is
not annihilating necessarily, or at least not, they could be orbiting each other and doing a whole bunch of funky business, really.
So there's these things called, basically like you take high energies, in the particle accelerator, they accelerate protons to extremely high energies and they smash them together so that they create all this energy comes out in different ways, and it creates all these different particles out of it, and they can measure them and see what new stuff gets created at higher and higher energies as they get higher and higher energies, and they always want bigger and bigger particle accelerators to get bigger and bigger energies so that we can smash things together at higher energies to create crazier particles. Like to get top quarks and bottom quarks, they needed to get to a certain level, and then now who knows what's next. But the whole idea is that a lot of people don't even know that photons, high energy gamma ray can come in and hit a nucleus of hit a neutron in the nucleus, and it can actually produce particles out of light. So light can produce particles out of it. It's called spontaneous pair production, and it's a real phenomenon in physics. And a lot of people don't know about this, but it was one of the top 10 things I'd say in physics that really would blow your mind if you don't know about it. When you first learn about it, it's one of those things like what, matter gets created out of light. It can just pop out of the vacuum as long as the light has a high enough energy, the energy of the photon is bigger than the MC squared, and mass energy of the particle. As long as you got enough energy, you can create particles.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you can get actual light matter conversion like that. Yeah, it's pretty wild for sure.
That's wild stuff, man. And a lot of people, they're just like not interested in this area of physics and stuff. But anyways, continue.
It's definitely the bleeding edge for sure. I mean, bleeding edge in the past 20 years for the most part, as far as physics is concerned. There's also, to add on to what you were talking about with the surfaces and things like that, where you're getting the light loaded materials and things like that. One way maybe people can start to think about this is analogous, not completely analogous, but it's similar. You can think of like where you have the cathode ray loadings in the cold fusion experiments, where they're loading them up, and so the skins that you're talking about with the light, and you're pumping the light into them. So there's a similarity there going on, and there may also be a connection to BPS states in like string models of in string theory, where you have these BPS states and you get what are called saturated states in the black holes, essentially.
Saturated states. Oh yes, I think I've heard of this before. This is
I mean it's a whole long cobweb of mathematics and
the
physics,
white holes.
Right.
Holes
Yeah,
stuff.
because the white holes are obviously the duals to black holes. It's essentially like you can think of a white hole as a reversed black hole, essentially, like just time reverse it.
Yeah, I had a picture of I'll have to go through the here it is right here. This was a good illustration. This is from Jack Sarfati. I don't know if he made this or where he got it, but I saw him post it and I stole it. What do you think about that graphic?
Oh yeah, Jack's a character for sure. But no, exactly. I mean, it's it's a simple graphic, and it gets across the point, right?
Yep.
He's got his light cones in there and everything,
So when are we going to get a group together and actually build some of this stuff and, start our own company and see how much they offer us. No, I'm just kidding. I would never sell out. That's the problem, man, is all this stuff, like once it gets good or gets to any point, you know, like it just gets sold out. You know, they come into the highest bidder. I laughed at that Fermi, you know, the Goody Award for anti-gravity. They have a Goody Award. I gotta find the actual thing.
No, I'm not aware of that actually.
So they have a Goody Award for if you discover anti-gravity, you know. So if you have a working proof of anti-gravity, you can get this Goody Award, and it's it's $1 million, you know. And
no, I was a little disappointed though with Don Lincoln though in that video where he came out and he was, you know, roasting the gravitomagnetism and all that stuff like that, and like he should know better that you know it's been a well-studied subject. Not saying that it is a thing per se, but it's been something that's, you know, definitely in the literature for sure.
It's just that it's so convenient for them to like ignore it and just, you know, be like, well, you know.
Yeah, you know, I really just have a feeling that he's like a member now of the particle physics community and specifically what they call HEP, you know, high energy physics. And he's like, you know, a high priest of them, at least as far as communications go. And, you know, it's unfortunate where like their views start to become dogmatic and they no longer want to look outside of their little, you know, club, so to speak.
Yeah. I'll say, no, we want to build a white hole, not a black hole. We don't want to build a white hole. We want to build a black. I mean, we don't want to build black holes. We want to build white holes, and we want to build metamaterials so that we can do these trapped and squeezed quantum states to build these white holes using quantum mechanics. But again, I think that there's some quantum entanglement and some quantum effects that are going on in those layered experiments that he left out of the layered disk in the Podkletov experiment, and also the layered materials that were used in the asymmetric capacitors and Biefeld-Brown's experiments, or the disks that, you know, he built and tested in those experiments. That some of which they show them working inside of a vacuum chamber, which is kind of like crazy in that old video that I posted. It's kind of like, well, it makes you go, I really need to, you know, test this for myself and try this myself if they're showing this, you know, and they're all celebrating after that vacuum chamber experiment, you know. It's kind of like, what the heck's going on? You know, is it, one theory was that it was like a twisted wire that, you know, when the electricity went through it, it contracted, which was lifting it up. You know, I don't know. There's all kinds of, but anyways, this $1 million is nothing. The Stiff Fung Stuff It Award, the Go Stuff It Award, as I call it. It should be the Go Stuff It Award, because if you invented anti-gravity, dude, this prize ain't crap compared. If we had the amount of resources that it would take, and we'd have to pull a company together and get like a whole team of people working and building this, and then, you know, after we spent $10 million, I'm sure Lockheed Martin would come in and offer us, you know, $20 million for this. So what's this $1 million prize, bro? Like,
oh yeah, it's a joke at that point. If you have any, if you have discovered any sort of actual, you know, anything analogous to, you know, that class of anti-gravity, it's in the billions, if not trillions of dollars you're talking about, and not just like space applications, but everyday life. It would literally change everything.
True, you ain't kidding. It would. Tajmar effect from quantized inertia, man. This is like, I really hope this gains more traction in the literature and just doesn't get ignored. We need to, like, I mean, these scientists have already done the work for us, you know. Again, I'm the alien scientist, but I'm really just a hype guy for the real alien scientists, man. We got to be sending these papers to link it, you know, all these guys that like complain about this stuff, and Bad Astronomy, he's another one that like blocks me on Twitter. We need to, you know, blow up these people's inboxes with all these papers on this stuff, and really just I don't know. I don't want to harass them, but you know, like I definitely want them to start paying more serious attention to this, and that like it's real physics. There's real, like a lot of real cool science going on here, and there's opportunity to advance, you know, humanity. And you guys are just like being a bunch of curmudgeons.
I totally agree with you. You know, I've been following this stuff probably just as long as you. I'm roughly, I think, around your age. So, you know, I got into this when I was a teenager, and I've been ever since kind of studying it as I've gotten older. And yeah, it's unfortunate to see what's happened to the physics community at large, and how they really have just you have the experimental physicists and the wide array of what they're doing, but they have become disconnected from a lot of the theorists and the high energy physicists, which are, you know, which is CERN and Fermilab for the most part, which have kind of gone off in their own direction. And, you know, I guess also the question you have to ask is how much of this is actually under lock and key from the government, because
well, then there's also a departure from the mainstream physics, because there's this stuff. I feel like it's kind of like the Manhattan Project over the last 20 years is how classified this has been, and the research that's, you know, people have done into this, and you know,
for sure. Yeah, no, I totally understand. Like, I mean, I grew up with a little bit of this. My father was an engineer for, I guess, classified work, so to speak, and he worked on sonars that went into Seawolf and stuff like that. So, you know, I kind of grew up with a little bit of this in my household, so kind of understand.
Do you know about the SOFAR spheres?
Which exactly are you talking about? Like the SOSA? You mean underneath
SOFAR?
SOFAR?
SOFAR. SOFAR channel.
It's not ringing a bell right now off the top of my head, but
all right, I'm just gonna see what you know about, you know, classified radar and secret stuff. So the SOFAR channel is this channel that exists in all the different oceans, and there's a range like where you get down to a certain depth, and the height of the water on the top and the density.
Yes, so you're talking about like the water columns and everything like that. Yeah. Okay.
It's where whales go. So whales go down to the SOFAR channel naturally, and they go down to that SOFAR channel so that they can. It's just like this microphone where they can send these signals and they can be heard for hundreds and hundreds of miles.
Right. Yeah,
because they're just at they're at that peak resonance in the ocean. So the ocean has like this peak resonance point, because the ocean's kind of like a metamaterial, but the metamaterial is tuned, and you have to hit that resonance point inside the metamaterial.
Yep.
Right. The way it's not really a metamaterial, but it is because of what the SOFAR channel represents, and that SOFAR channel, once the whales go down to that resonant channel, they can send things super far. So scientists obviously picked up on this, you know.
Oh yeah. No, it's wild how much they know about this stuff. I mean, they've been studying it for decades, right? And so these sonars in the submarines and whatnot they catalog every single sound that they pick up, so they know exactly what they're listening to when it pops up and pings on the sonar display for them.
Yeah, so these things were called SOFAR bombs or SOFAR spheres. That's what they were called. I heard them in the stories that I heard originally. The
You're talking about the high frequency too that they were using, right?
It's these little tiny. It's these little. They're not tiny. They're a sphere. It's a metal sphere.
Yeah.
It's these metal spheres, and they're basically the right thickness so that they implode at that. When they reach that depth, they're like depth charges. So
right.
The same idea with the depth charges. When it gets down to a certain pressure, it explodes.
Is this the same stuff with when they were worried about because they were killing the whales off this?
I don't think this is a killing the whales, but
no. I mean, the frequencies would, because they're so high frequency that they were getting worried that they were actually doing damage to the whales.
Oh, I don't know about that. There might be a study that was done on that, but I know that in World War II.
This is what I was told, that you know the scientists that were researching.
You do know something about this, all right?
Yeah. What I was told was that the actual scientists that were going out into the oceans, you know, they got worried that since they were using such high frequencies, they might actually be hurting the animals at
Right.
that
I heard
point,
that
because the animals,
the dolphins are intelligent, and they actually went and attacked with one of their Tic Tacs and retaliated for the noise.
really, I've never heard that story before.
No, I'm just kidding. This was the nonsense that this guy was one of those guys on that big phone home was talking. He kept bringing up dolphins and intelligent dolphins and talking.
Oh, like whatever his name down in like was it Florida or something? The guy with the LSD and all that. I forget his name. I think
so. Yeah, Jazz Shaw, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I forget his name. The guy who did the LSD experiment. He was tripping out, and he had built his home with the dolphins. And he had the woman with him also that helped him with the dolphins and all that. Yeah, that was
that guy's a crazy story, man. Crazy.
In his defense, right? Like, yeah, dolphins are intelligent. We do know, based off of their clicks and their sonar data, that is.
Yeah, if whales are intelligent, we have to charge all whale murderers with felonies.
Well, I'm not saying that they're sapient, but what we do know is that various dolphin species actually have names for individual members of the pod, right?
Right.
Here's the thing, right? The dolphins did not attack a Tic Tac. They would have no mechanism to even do so.
Well, let's talk about what the Tic Tac even is, because there's a lot of different theories. So these transmedium craft that can supercavitate. There's these ideas about these missiles that can do this, like that torpedo video I was going to show, but we didn't get to.
Yeah, I was so when you got into that stuff, I mean, I was a big fan of David Chester. He knew it. He knew his stuff when he was talking about when he was getting into the gravitics.
I gotta get David back on.
Yeah, Dave was pretty good. He seemed to actually know the theoretics behind a lot of what you're talking about, especially in reference to because if you these craft that can go between the atmosphere and the water and all these mediums, like you're saying, the transmedium craft. You have to create a space-time bubble or whatever the nomenclature you want to call it. It hasn't obviously been decided, or it's, in whatever project they use, that does have it. If it does exist, they've named it. But to do that, I'm definitely with you on this whole metamaterial line of, you're loading this metamaterial with light, and it. I don't think the skin is enough, though. I don't think that you're going to be able to generate enough energy density just based off the skin. I think the bulk of the material also has to be manufactured on the atomic level, to get these effects, to get that energy density high enough.
Yeah, it has to be these tuned materials where you can pump this certain frequencies into them, and they can. And I was thinking like these ideas of tuned materials that just absorb ambient sunlight. You know what I mean? And turn that into the energy, because it's got to be like people mentioned in the chat here earlier. I can't find the comment now, but they talked about the idea of what about just using the energy that's around you and using the light that's right around you. I was like, dude, totally. Like you could totally just use the sunlight if you had the right technology and the right materials.
Yeah, if you could absorb enough of it, right?
Especially if you built your craft out of these super lightweight composites and had hydrogen and store it, is like you use the hydrogen for energy and also to stay buoyant. And but again, back to this SOFAR bomb, which is still up on the screen. I wanted to finish the thought on that and talk about it. But these spheres, if the sailors would get captured, they just find this metal sphere and then they cut it open. It would be empty inside. There'd be nothing in it. It would just they wouldn't understand what it was or what it was used for, right? But what the Navy did is they set up during World War II all these monitoring stations along the SOFAR channels. So they drop an anchor and set up this buoy that on this cable that would sit there at the SOFAR channel level in the ocean and just listen in. And then what would happen is if you were a sailor and you went overboard, this was part of your rescue kit, and your instructions were to drop one of these metal spheres into the water and then wait about a half hour and then drop another one in the water, wait a half hour and then drop another one in the water in a half hour, and you'd be rescued. and they wouldn't explain to the soldiers how or anyone how it worked. It would just be like what they were instructed to do, and that was like, you know, but they weren't allowed to, you know, that was like this secret intelligence, you know.
Yep, exactly.
And so if the enemy found him, they just cut him open. They'd be like, there's nothing inside it. But what the bomb was designed to do is it was just designed to drop down to that SOFAR channel level, and as soon as it hit that pressure, the ball would implode, and it would create this characteristic ping noise when the ball imploded, you know, from the pressure. And that the SOFAR things would pick that up, and they'd be able to triangulate that noise, and they'd get a good idea of, you know, where to send the search party to go look for you. And and
that's World War II technology.
That's World War II.
No, exactly. They've gone a lot farther since then, like where they were using high frequency. They didn't need to use actual, you know, like these bombs or anything like that. They would actually just generate the high frequencies themselves to ping off anything. And be able to get like much clearer pictures, so to speak, in sonar. And that's, it's pretty wild how far the technology's actually come in sonar.
So talk about that. Yeah, let's talk about where you know some more modern stuff, but this is something that I learned.
No, I don't want to say that I know too much or anything like that. I just heard stories and stuff like that. I'm no professional or anything.
I want to hear some stories. Just the craziest thing you ever heard right now.
Craziest thing? I mean, not too much, man. I mean, really just like the whale stuff, like, you know, the research, just like I said, you know, they have
what do you know about the dolphins?
The dolphins. But, you know, just hearing about the SOSA array, that, you know about SOSA, right? You know, how the whole Atlantic Ocean's monitored and everything like that, right?
What is it? SOSA? SOSA?
I believe it is SOSA, right? I might be confusing. I might be remembering it wrong.
If we diverge too much on dolphins, people will accuse us of being positists.
Oh, geez.
What are you talking about? What's this word? You use a lot of positist?
Positists. It was a weird communist cult created by Juan Posidas.
These nerds, man, you guys come up with the craziest stuff. I love it. This is a positist. I've never heard of this before. So what is please break it down for us.
So there's this guy by the name of Juan Posidas who thought that the secret to obtaining contact with extraterrestrials was to wait for society to nuke itself into oblivion so that a post-resource scarcity civilization will be able to come down to Earth without interference, and they would raise up the dolphins to break through sapiency, because they were under the impression that they were close to sapiency, and that it would create this fully automated luxury gay space communism with the dolphins.
Oh yeah, because they're like wicked horny. They try to have sex with human women all the time.
Sometimes, yeah. So yeah, that's positivism. So if we mix marine biology with ufology, people might accuse us of being positivists.
So well, not on the dolphins, but the actual array that I'm talking about, it's SOSUS. It's SOSUS, and it's a passive sonar system that's in the Atlantic Ocean that is just there listening to anything underwater, essentially. And this is how they were able to get, you know, a lot of the sounds and just listen to a lot of the ambient noises and catalog it all. So when the submarines go out, they have, you know, a catalog of all these sounds, and they can identify
what does SOSA
stand
stand for. Is it an
acronym? There's an acronym for it.
I can't find it. Is it
just type in SOSUS array, SOSUS array, and on Google, and you should be able to find it.
Oh, SOSUS.
Yeah.
I'm looking up Sammy Sosa. I'm like, this guy's just plays.
And you'll get the Wikipedia
baseball
page, which will give you the basics on it and stuff like that. I mean, it's been around for a while too. I forget exactly when they completed it.
Good stuff, man.
But I feel like I want to say that it's got a, you know, it's a post World War II network that, you know, when they came up with the idea, but I think it was like the 80s is when they started to like finish it up and put it into effect. But
well, this is good, man. This is a good start. We need more. I want to know more about the NSA's like satellite. They got to have like with all these NSA spy satellites, like I mentioned those in my report, man, there's got to
Oh
be
yeah,
some.
keyhole and all that stuff. Like the modern people don't realize like the modern like the all like Hubble. Hubble is really just like a bad version of the NSA spy satellites.
Yeah, yeah, it's like it's meant to look out in space. Like the other
Yeah,
ones
yeah.
can, the other ones can read the Marlboro. Right? They can tell you whether your cigarette's a Marlboro or a a
Right.
Camel
Yeah,
from
yeah.
space.
They can read like the heading on a newspaper essentially.
Yeah.
But remember, the Eye of Sauron can see anywhere, but not everywhere.
Anywhere, but not everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
That's it. They just put more of them
Have
in
you
the sky.
heard about the Roman satellites that the NSA gave to NASA that they're canceled keyhole satellites that they aren't going to put up?
Yeah. So who built Hubble? It was the NRO, right?
Yeah, I believe it originally. Yeah, I mean they all. Yeah, it's all NRO stuff.
NACA was original satellite. These satellites going back to the before
Right.
NASA, but then NASA had this whole NRO space. This is like the
Right,
secret
and the
space
national,
program
the
stuff.
National Reconnaissance Office. They're the guys who are tasked with launching it and, or at least tracking it and getting all the data from them. They're the ones that take control of all that.
Go look up the Hubble telescope. I want to see like the optical capabilities of it.
Well, yeah, Hubble has one thing that I believe it's the UV, or is it old? I think it's UV. That it's either UV or it's the other end, infrared.
And what was the deal with the lens on it? Because remember when they put it up originally,
It wasn't polished properly.
And like they still launched it into space.
Yeah, and get this right. So they had two lenses. They had a backup lens, and they thought the one that they had installed on Hubble was correct. Turns out the backup lens was actually done properly. It was done by Kodak too. They had two different
contractors.
Right, two different contractors, and the guys. I forget the one that went up and did it. That's up there right now, where they had to put the corrective optics in. They sent up the shuttle team and everything for that. But the other lens was produced by Kodak, I believe, and they got it right because I believe they tested it, and it's in a museum down somewhere.
This is what we got to get, Sky, is NASA contracts. This is,
So Roman's the real interesting thing because it's 100 times more powerful than Hubble. So it can take a sky survey that Hubble. So what Hubble does in like one night, Roman would be able to do 100 times more. And this is supposed to, I mean, so they gave 2 of them to NASA, and I believe NASA said they only have the budget for 1 of them, and they're going to build out the actual 1 of them. So they should be sending that up. I think the date's like somewhere around 2025 or something like that. They'll finish Roman. So it'll be 100 times power on sky survey with Roman compared to Hubble. So just think about how much sky you can look at compare, because it takes like a few hours, I believe, for Hubble to image what it images, where now you can do 100 times that. You can get a lot more of the sky done. You can check out a lot more.
Yeah, we gotta figure out a way to set up a monitoring program with these satellites too, so we can track everything that comes in and out of the atmosphere and have that data shared within an open data source database so that we can know.
If you really wanted to peer far out into space, I might recommend, if you remember Telescope Arecibo, which was a microwave spectrum telescope. One of the things that has been proposed doing, which I agree with, would actually be going to the center of the dark side of the moon to cut out all that noise, all that crap. So you got no noise, you got no light contamination from Earth, all that good stuff, right? And then you could take one of the craters of the moon, of the dark side of the moon, glass it with a thermonuclear explosion, polish it to be incredibly smooth, and now you have the largest collector, the largest parabola to run either a microwave spectrum or possibly even optical spectrum telescope. Of course, a mirror that large would be very difficult to maintain, but even a regular optical telescope on the moon would have such very little light interference or pollution, no signal interference. It would be a very, very clean environment. And especially a microwave telescope of that size, we would be able to peer further into the universe than what we could ever do on Earth.
Right. Well, that's why they're sending what's the next telescope going up? I forget its name right now.
Lucifer. No.
It's the James Webb.
Yeah, James Webb, right. But that has to go to, I believe, L2, the
Someone
Lagrange
mentioned
point 2.
this large binocular telescope. This isn't a space telescope. This is a ground-based telescope too, by the way.
Check out the designs on James Webb. It has like something like 6 heat shields to keep out the sun. So the temperature of the satellite can be the proper temperature without any thermal conductivity interfering with it. It's pretty wild how good it's going to be, actually. You gotta give them credit where credit's due. It's pretty amazing. It's no joke.
Well, one of the cool things about building a telescope on the moon is that when you polish the surface, because the moon has such a high alumina content, we can take the aluminum, we can take the oxygen out of it and use that for atmospheric purposes, for the crew, for oxidizers, for fuel, all sorts of stuff, right? But because the moon's atmosphere is basically non-existent and it's a non-oxidizing atmosphere, we can actually polish the aluminum into a mirror polish, and we won't have to worry about it oxidizing and tarnishing white over time.
Yeah, that is a interesting idea, actually. Wow.
And even things that are polished, if you look at photomicrographs of objects that are highly polished by most of our standards, you'll actually see lots of asperities and rough surfaces and gouges. But you can do electrochemical polishing, and that brings it down to a smooth finish, even under a photomicrograph.
Right. Well, yeah, that's how you get your nano level of surface finishes, because you can only do so much mechanically, like you're saying. Right, you have to actually then go in, like you're saying, either with chemicals or the electro processes they have to get that nano to the atomic surface finish.
Right.
On the surface.
And the reason why is you can't go any further down mechanically, because eventually any friction will actually create its own asperities, and there's a cascading failure effect.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, this thing's amazing. Look at that's the Hubble mirror compared to this thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like what, like 4 or 5 times bigger or something like that.
The honeycomb
haunts my dreams.
Huge. Yeah, this is the James Webb telescope. If people want to go check that out, we're streaming live to Facebook and YouTube. Those of you.
So I got a question for you guys. How'd you guys feel about when Arecibo, caved in on itself?
That was a blow, man. That was like our one eye and our one, big ear, a big ear that was not Alcubierre, the Arecibo.
You know about the Chinese dish, right?
Yeah, the Chinese 500-meter array.
Right. Yeah, but there's one thing the Chinese dish can't do that Arecibo could do.
What was that?
It was an actual the Arecibo could send radio waves out.
Oh, you're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so there was a few missions, I forget, with satellites that went off course, but they were able to contact it with Arecibo and send up some data links. I forget which missions these were. I can't recall off the top of my head. I think it was like something of Venus or something, or like a solar satellite that had gone off course, and they were able to actually like get some information back from it and get some data uplinks off Arecibo.
I have friends that are in Puerto Rico, live near here. Man, I wish.
But yeah,
I really wish we could just go there and send a drone over every month, every week to see all the progress that's been being done on there daily. Ever since this happened, the cleanup has got to be massive, man. The whole cradle fell.
I wonder if they've even done anything.
No, as far as I could be wrong in this assessment, but as far as I recall, they've abandoned it. They don't.
Right. They
don't
probably
even,
knowing
don't,
how
why spend the money to demolish it? It's falling apart on its own.
exactly. They're like, all right, whatever, just leave it there, like the rest of America's been going. Look at half our infrastructure. They just leave it.
I mean, why spend money to demolish it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just
Could be better
unfortunate.
just
It's
to shape the whole ground up, but I don't know, man. It's like
well, I mean, that's the thing, right? I'm with you on. I mean,
they
it's
can redo this.
Yeah, it's a perfect location. That's the thing. I mean, I guess you could go out and find another area that's a huge, geological depression like that.
We gotta start like a GoFundMe to go there and redo this, and that can be our headquarters in Puerto Rico. I heard it's tax free for the Bitcoin stuff too, so we can get all the Bitcoin millionaires to move there with their money, so they can be tax free. And might be, dude, this might be the spot, bro. Like this was where this is where the dream started, back in the when was this thing built? The 60s?
Think so. Somewhere around there. Yeah, it's old.
Isn't it old? It's gotta be freaking. Let's look it up. When was it originally commissioned? 53 years. 63. It was completed in 1963. I was right. Shit, 63. Kennedy was shot 63. Let's see what else.
Yeah, what a shame. What a shame to let such a nice piece of equipment, just go to waste like that.
Damn.
Right? And you got the Chinese building, 500-meter dishes, right? And it's like, what the fuck?
The cable snapped. They had a support system, and it just like got, it wasn't strong enough to hold it all.
Well, the thing, that's what I said though, right? These spherical, these depressed parabolic arrays, concave arrays, they're for things like radio signals, microwave spectrums, radio spectrums, etc. Right? If you really want to peer into the universe, or send or receive super far distances, imagine turning a lunar crater on the dark side of the moon without any noise interference at all into a giant array. You want to talk about big? That's miles across.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I've heard about that where they were, people have theorized that if you want the best version of that, that's where you're going to go. You're going to go on the dark side of the moon, and you get all the noise out. Right, exactly. You get all the thermal interference and all that out of it because you're on the dark side, and you can just peer out into the, the blackness perfectly and get, really good pictures back.
And you want to talk about sending signals a distance. That'll send some signals.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is the mission. It says it's in Cuba, but this was like the Cradle mission, and it was built after like this whole idea of the Arecibo telescope,
Yeah, this is a James Bond. Yeah,
and the James Bond. This was from GoldenEye, the video game, but
no, but they had it in the movie as well. They filmed. They actually filmed on location, I believe.
Yeah,
for the movie.
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
I'm pretty sure they did, because they were up on the walkways when they filmed those scenes.
So that was you have to fight this guy down here. Mission completed. You smacked the crap out of him. Yeah, so where's the actual GoldenEye? Oh, let's go 007 James Bond Arecibo. Yeah, that's telescope scene. Oh, here it is. This scene. Yeah, this was filmed on location. This is cool. We're gonna get copyright violation for showing it though. So there it is. We're just trying to show the Arecibo telescope for theatrical purposes. Look at that thing. Oh, this is the scene where it goes down to the end.
Arecibo was a serious piece of equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, look at that thing. Look at that.
I mean, people are quick to underestimate the cost of these large infrastructure projects. These projects are very, very costly to pursue. And they fulfill very niche roles, which makes them very difficult to get funded politically. So yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's a big ask when you go to Congress to be like, oh, well, I need, a few $100 million to build it. And then we're going to need, maybe another, a few $100 million, maybe $1 billion over its lifetime. And they're looking like, for what? What are you doing with this? You're looking at the sky with it? That's all you're doing? So yeah, it's a big ask when you're going up against like you're saying, you're going to the political elite in this country and you're trying to convince them like, oh, this is something that we truly need.
Right. Well, it's even hard if you try to get it funded privately, right? Because it's they're going to give you the same bulking answer. Go, oh, that's a lot of money for something that's very specialized.
Yeah, I mean, it's the private funding has been pretty bad in the past 20 to 30 years in this country. I mean, you look after World War II and you have all like, you have the Rockefellers and all those guys, right? And the Carnegies and all that. And they were actually pretty liberal with their pocket, at least as far as, spending for these big cultural projects, I guess you could call them. and it's slowly died off as time has gone on.
Well, what's happened is they've shoveled it onto the public sector, and they just expect all the taxpayers to foot the bill for development now. If you're trying to start a company that's predicated upon developing technology, unless it's IT, unless it's software, in which case you'll get all the money pouring into your lap. But if you want to actually advance hardware or materials or anything like that, they're going to go, no, that's what tax money's for.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, you get into the whole conversation of, because you're talking about the children, because the children of the elite taking over, these billionaires and their kids, and are they just not interested in these things that their parents were interested in funding? And it kind of seems that we have gone that way. It's kind of like when they talk about the decadence of Rome at its end, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at it from their perspective, right? What advantage do they have by advancing our technological prowess?
Right.
Advancement to their perspective is bad. It undermines their hegemony and position because they won't be able to compete with archaic business models anymore. And so technology advancement is bad to their perspective. They want to stifle innovation, stifle technological advancement, stifle change. Change is bad. When you're at the top, any change can only threaten your position.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, I'm with you 100 on that.
Yeah, I think that we're gonna see a lot of changes happening. I mean, Puerto Rico might be a good spot to move to because of this Bitcoin thing and the changes in the markets that it's already caused. As more people are shifting to that to like store their money because it's I don't know, but not telling anyone what to do with their money or how to make financial decisions. But
now, do you think we're in a bubble right now, though?
I don't know. I just feel like it's gonna pop soon. I feel
Oh
like
yeah.
something's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, if you,
know
I
what I
mean,
mean,
just look
Like,
at the
if
stock
you
market.
didn't get in on
Oh.
it already, you're not like.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's like that's the feeling I totally get, and but
Same. Where it seems to be, at the end of its life, this bubble, this cycle, at least.
we'll see. I don't know. It might just hold and stay, but it's
That would be a first. That would be a first in capitalism, because I mean, capitalism is predicated on these boom and bust cycles, right?
Well, I wouldn't call this capitalism. This is more like a crony kleptocracy.
Well, it's always been that. I mean, you go
Well-
all the way back to when it started with mercantilism, and not to get too far away from our conversation here,
Right.
but right, the change from feudalism to mercantilism into what they call capitalism. It's
Well-
always been the elite that's
I mean,
essentially
yeah.
running it.
Sapphire is an interesting project. I would not axiomatically assume that our current quote unquote models that are emotionally defended by academians for some reason. I would not assume
what is
that
this? Is this where they're building, or is this a different
they're
building?
comparing their reactor scale to a fission reactor. The densities involved.
This is the ITR.
Yeah, that's
Tokamak.
ITER. Yeah, so what Sapphire is doing is they're creating a viable competitor to both fission and fusion reactors using medium thermal plasmas.
That's the ITR. Oh my God! Look at the size of that thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a money pit. It's
check
a fucking
out-
money pit.
It is a money pit for sure. They're actually building the insides now. Like the actual machine is being built. You can check it out. There's pictures up online of the. I mean, the whole building's built already, and they're already constructing the actual the fusion reactor itself is being built.
Oh my word!
It's crazy how big ITER is going to be, and whether or
And
not it actually works.
It ain't
is
gonna work.
Yeah,
I
know. I'm
I'll bet
skeptical
anyone
too.
here. I'll bet anyone here $5,000 it won't work.
I'm skeptical too. I mean, a lot of people.
$5,000. Who's up for it?
A lot
Who's
of
up
people
for
say
it
the
right now?
I mean, they say the Russians purposely gave us the tokamak design because it was flawed from the start, right?
Well, it's it's always another 10 years away. The energy of the
Another
future
10
forever.
years, another big boost in funding away.
Yeah,
Don't
but
pay attention
right.
to cold fusion though. Look, these guys are talking cold fusion.
well, it's not to say that fusion
is
can't
good,
work,
man.
but that the tokamak design specifically is fundamentally flawed. That no matter what you do, you're never going to be able to get it work.
Yeah, the amount of because the bigger you make it, the bigger the magnetic bubble costs, and that costs all your
Exactly.
energy, man.
Dude, think about the plasma controls you need. Think about the twisting action that you have to put on that plasma and control properly so that it doesn't go into the wall. It's insane.
Well,
And they're trying to model these things in supercomputers. Like,
well,
good luck.
you know what? You know why? It's because they're fundamentally operating off of the axiomatic assumption that the sun is a thermonuclear furnace deriving all of its energy from nuclear fusion. We don't actually know that. Fusion might be a byproduct of a primary reaction that is occurring deeper inside of the sun. There are many mysteries around the sun that we still can't explain. For example, why is the surface of the sun so much cooler
right,
than
yeah.
the plasma sheath that surrounds it? Under the thermonuclear furnace hypothesis, it should be getting progressively hotter the further you go inside.
I would stress that the key element is not that it's just a thermonuclear furnace, but it's a gravitic nuclear thermo furnace. So it's the gravity factor too that you have to bring in.
What is gravity? Oh, it's a distortion of space-time. But why does matter intrinsically distort space-time? And I'm always
No, yeah, I hear you.
Right.
Look, I'm open-minded to this stuff too. I try to be as open-minded as possible, but I'm also I do put some weight with what the results physics has produced over the ages now.
Sure.
And they're pretty good at what they do is all I'm trying to say.
Sure, right. And I'm not in disagreement. My point of the matter is that they don't offer a mechanism to explain why matter under the mainstream model has the intrinsic property of distorting the space-time thing that they describe, which they don't really have a lot of physical evidence for dark matter or dark energy, right? But the point of the matter is that I always ask them, why does matter have this intrinsic property of distorting space-time in your model? And they say that they basically either make up fluff, and I could tell that they're making up fluff because they're just the electrons. It's like, dude, you don't know. Just say you don't know, or if they're an honest professor, they just say that we don't know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. The straight answer is definitely we don't know for sure, 100%. But I mean, if you do start to get into the actual literature a little bit, there seems to be hints at what is underneath it all. I mean, if you look at what string theory is, twistor theory is getting to, even quantum field theory with the knots of the quantum fields, there seems to be some sort of weird thing going on there. And Jeremy, I sent you some of the links to this, and it seems to be just like a recent development really in the past 10, 15 years within physics, this idea of that maybe we've been thinking about matter fundamentally all wrong.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That
this whole theory that goes back, in the vision of how stars and matter is produced, it goes back to the 50s and stuff. This was cited in John Huzienga's book. I remember I think I have John Huzienga's book somewhere, but this guy was the quintessential, like, Dr. No, or like that Baron von Kelvin, like, just I'm going to be a dick kind of guy, like, just because I want to, and he totally protected his interests in hot fusion. He was like such a big proponent of hot fusion and hot fusion and hot fusion. And where's hot fusion gotten us, man? We're dumping all this money into this giant money pit. And it's like mainstream physics has totally like lost its way.
Well, anybody who has an attitude like Lord Kelvin is somebody that I'm immediately not going to trust their word on what will or won't work, because I already know how well Lord Kelvin's predictions came out. He said that heavier than air flight was mathematically impossible, and he had this
proved it with a
formula to prove it. Yeah, he proved it. Right. Oh, that's Lord Kelvin. How dare you?
Right. Just shows how short-sighted he truly was, right? Or how uncreative his thinking really was.
Well, and this is the thing, right? The current models that most people just have so many axiomatic stuff, we just assume that there's a relationship. Relationship what? Between relativity and quantum? We don't even know if relativity is accurate, for that matter. We don't know all of these things that people just assume to be true. They're axioms. So we have to take a step back.
Yes and no.
Question our fundamentals.
I like to quote Werner von Braun: "One good test is worth 1,000 expert opinions."
Fuck yeah.
For sure. But where I was gonna take this was that if you start looking at the newer literature, and I was talking about the knots wrapping up space-time in the quantum fields, and if you look at what string theory is pointing to, it starts to take this new approach where you start to think about particles as actually topologically stable black holes. So what I'm saying is that the matter itself, like what we experience as the matter, is a topological horizon or a shell you can think of around a black hole.
Okay, is there any evidence to support that?
It's just, this is what, the cutting edge is.
I'm familiar with string theory. Yeah. I'm a super skeptic. Right?
And then if you get into what, ER equals EPR with black holes, and you get into black hole physics, and if black holes are really just entangled, this would then add credence to string theory, where you get string theory where gravity is just a production through the D membranes.
We don't even know if black holes exist for sure. There's no consensus as to whether or not black holes exist.
Look, I understand, but when you start to point your telescope out into space and you see these bodies moving around this dark object out there, this mysterious body,
they're all Dyson spheres.
Well, no. Hold up. It could be a plasma torus, a donut-shaped star that has super high, very strong electromagnetic properties that could fling material around it, following the right-hand rule or even a left-hand rule if it's backwards in its polarity,
So
right?
yeah. The thing is that there's limits with electrodynamics with like when you get in like QCD, QED and just EM in general. There are certain limits. I'm aware of not Birkeland currents, but what am I thinking of? Alphin, what was his name? When he's talking about like the cosmic currents and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Magnetic current. Yeah. So I am aware of all those hypotheses.
Well, don't forget the Vercator model either.
Right.
Can you guys post links to the stuff in the private chat so I can bring it up on the screen too? Because we're going a little fast here and bringing up a lot of stuff. I want to keep it at a pace the audience can keep along with. But we were talking about topologically restricted and associated domains and stuff like that. I think that there's this whole idea that atoms are like a form of black hole, like literally there's an information in, information out, but it's different than a black hole. They're like, because information does flow in and out, but it's not reversed. There's a non-time reversal symmetry breaking that happens in basically interactions with photons and atoms. But black hole atoms and this whole weird gravitational molecules could orbit black holes. That's not the one.
It's very cutting edge. I mean, it's very speculative.
Micro black holes. It's an idea that this idea that light is MC equals MC squared. It shows that light is energy is. Or matter is energy that's trapped in the speed of light. It's traveling at the speed of light, but it's trapped in one spot.
Right. It's like the photon sphere around a black hole, essentially.
Yeah. It's exactly like it's like the photon is falling into something, but it's still trapped.
Right. So you get those perfect spheres around the black hole, exactly, and they're topologically stable. And another thing to bring up also into the conversation would be the ADS CFT correspondence theory, which is the holographic theory about black holes, right? Where you have anti-de Sitter space and conformal field theory.
Yeah, that's the Malsadina stuff, right?
Right, exactly. And this is like what they've been, most physicists have been using to have trying to at least discover some sort of connection between quantum mechanics formally and
Yep. We had I had a bunch of papers on this too. Let me just find these. You're not the Matthew who's sending me all this stuff right now.
Yeah.
Oh, it is cool.
Yeah, it's the same. Yep.
Same dude. Awesome. Yeah, good for you to jump on finally. This is good to get talking to you because I love seeing you berate these people on Twitter who don't know shit about physics.
It's unfortunate. A lot of people just they're watching all the wrong.
I'm trying to learn. I'm at least I'd admit I don't know shit about physics. Like I'm happy to have guys like you come on and show me new stuff.
Well, I don't know anything about physics. I'm just a skeptic that's heard all the arguments and remain unconvinced as to any which way to go with.
I try to be as open-minded as well, man.
Yeah, because this is like some of this. I mean, a lot of the stuff's well established theory and
established. Oh, that's one of my trigger words.
The math is good, dude. It's like
it is though. I mean it. There is a certainty with the mathematics, or at least to a certain degree.
Hold up,
to a certain degree.
There's a certain brilliance and soundness.
Lord Kelvin's math was good too.
I mean, he didn't take. It was only good to a certain degree, though. He didn't take in all the actual physics, though. Really,
are you familiar?
This is the good part. This is the good part is that Lord Kelvin's math gave the Wright brothers the formula, the physics formula that they needed to break.
Well, hold on. Are you familiar with Banach-Tarski?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so so even though Banach-Tarski mathematically works, it totally works. Can we make two Earths out of one?
Right, right. So you're
I'm not familiar with
now
Banach-Tarski.
we're getting into a whole different discussion of
should we get there? Should we go?
Applied mathematics versus formal mathematics. Like they're just it's.
How do you spell this guy's name?
It's Banach Tarski Tarski.
Or I'm sorry, you know what? It's applied mathematics versus pure mathematics, as they would call it, the mathematicians.
So this guy's going against Malsadina?
No, it's just a pure mathematics result. So it's something in like how you can have all these crazy infinities within mathematics and stuff like that have nothing to do with reality.
Right? Can you guys send me? Is there a link in the private chat to this guy?
Let me give you one. Hold up. So Banach-Tarski, TLDR, for most people.
Viractor. Oh, this is cool. This is the virtual cathode oscillator. It's a microwave generator that's capable of generating brief pulses of tunable narrowband microwaves at very high power levels. Is this what they use to in that laser?
Yeah, it's Vercators are used in all sorts of different things.
Vercator, not because there's a Viractors too, is another type of.
Yeah, Vercators are used in all sorts of different applications, and some people prefer to model the relationships between the planets and the stars as Vercators.
Veracap, it's called. It's a different type of diode. That's something else. So a Verac, where the heck did it go? Where's the I've got too many damn windows open with all this stuff. But this is cool stuff.
So yeah, the science is never settled.
No, it shouldn't be.
There's no such thing as consensus. The science is never settled, and there is no established. All of that is spook. Anyone who disagrees with that is epistemologically.
I think you pissed off Matthew. He left, dude.
I didn't mean to. Sorry if you took offense.
You can come back, dude. I don't think he's mad. I'm just kidding. Who's this guy? Who's this guy? So Herman Verlinde. There's a lot of cool papers. I'll post these in the live chat, in the video feed. This is cool. On the comments. Yeah, the science is settled, guys. What do you think? Do you think there is such a thing as like ever a consensus? Like we can like have like something that we can all agree on and just be like, all right, well, this is, we can all agree this is objective truth, I don't know if we can. Vercators.
We would not be able to do so and be epistemologically in line with the scientific method.
That's probably true. There must be always someone that's like, no, I disagree. I'm going to, go against and test this. Right. Because once we reach consensus on something, it becomes like an established law, and then no one's testing it anymore. We're not going to break, we're not going to break it. We're not going to find new science that breaks it,
Right. That's why, we've been drudged
stagnant
with this stagnant model based off relativity, which was created when relativity was created, there were three states of matter: solids, liquids, and gases. And that's it. When relativity was created, there were so many things we know today that we didn't even know back then. And a lot of the phenomena that is ascribed to relativity can be explained through other mechanisms. There are other phenomena that we know exist that did not exist back in the 1930s and 40s.
Yeah, and new discoveries like this is like theoretical predictions that were later proved true. And well, we're already at 2.5 hours. I didn't realize we were getting this far in, and it's getting late, so I probably want to I want to end it here soon, and then we'll open this up to people behind the scenes. So if you guys want to join after the after party, you guys can join here. But again, I'm going to post some of these links in the description in here. And that was great to have Matt to come on, man, because I've been waiting to talk to that dude for a while. He's been watching me for a while, and it's great to have someone who's more knowledgeable on the physics and is more up on this this stuff to talk about. You know, and share some of the real physics with us. This is real interesting stuff. I'm going to share a couple more of your links before we log off here, Matt.
Well, I just want to say real quick that
oh, he's back.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I want to say real quick that one of the interesting things about black hole phenomena is that the Schwarzschild radius, which is oftentimes cited as being evidence, is a very specific type of Gaussian curvature. And if you understand Gaussian curvature and how that mathematically relates to things, it's effectively a very flexible placeholder tool that can allow you to mathematically fill things that you don't know are for sure accurate. Quite interesting.
So this video here, Matt, Moray Materials.
Oh yeah, this is good.
This was really good.
Yeah. A lot of the Simon stuff is really good. I mean, you're aware of James Simon, Jim? Or
yeah,
James.
I swear I've seen him in the chat jump in and pop his head in. He watches some of my videos too, so it's cool.
Aware of James Simon.
But yeah, I'm gonna post this in here so people can go and check out these guys. The Simons Foundation. These guys are awesome. Definitely. I'm already subscribed to them. So
yeah, he's a billionaire, and he's one of the few guys out there that are, supporting fundamental science out there, research into fundamental physics and the whole
really?
broad. Yeah. He's
I didn't even know that about him. I watched a couple of his videos and he seems like a real nice guy.
He runs Renaissance Technologies. It was one of the first algorithmic trading hedge funds, and it's the most successful in the history of mankind as far as algorithmic trading goes. That's where he's made his money.
So he's good at math.
Yeah, and he's also and before that he was famous for, he's a mathematician by trade, right? So he first got his start at the NSA doing cryptography work, came out of the NSA and worked at, I believe he actually became director of the mathematics at Stony Brook on Long Island.
Oh, wow.
In New York, yeah.
I have a friend that went there for grad school. That's awesome.
Yeah. I live actually pretty close to Stony Brook. So, so anyway, he was the head of the chair there for mathematics, and while he was there, he met Chern, the physicist Chern. And this is where you get Chern-Simons, Chern-Simons theorem from, which is a big time, used in physics to explain a lot of stuff in physics. And it's super famous. So if you just Google Chern-Simons theorem or Chern-Simons sign theorem, and Chern is one of the leading physicists of the 20th century. So
if you could break this down for a seventh grader, what is in this video and what are they even looking at, and what do they need to learn to get up to this level?
There's
a lot of physics they need to get,
right. Yeah,
I see a lot of stuff in here,
this is definitely like grad level stuff for most people, So
man, this is
but
it's heavy. But
Moray patterns, which are like when you take like a repeating pattern and you put another repeating pattern on top of it, and you move one of them and you start to get these other translational patterns that emerge out of it. So they're saying, okay, well, what happens if we do this with metamaterials? Let's actually take physical systems and see if we can kind of do an analogous, thing with them, like something,
like magic angle graphing and all these
right. Exactly. So that's kind of like the real simple, easy to digest breakdown of that.
Gotcha. No, that's a good explanation for it.
Yeah, I apologize if I wasn't able to summarize, everything very concise for the audience tonight, but I kind of just wanted to jump in and at least add to the conversation.
This is
That's
good
all.
physics, man. This is gonna get me plenty of stuff to dig into. I started digging into some of this stuff, but
Yeah, no, hey, I want to give you a lot of credit, man. Your videos originally actually got me really psyched because I had been researching a lot of the stuff, like your original videos from like 10 years ago or, 12 years ago, whatever it was.
yeah.
I had been looking up that stuff just on my own because I was interested in, ufology and classified research projects and always asking like, how far is the bleeding edge of technology? How far have we really come? Like we have the public sector, we have the public domain, and so where is it end? Where is that, the point where we are right now? So I had been doing the research on my own, and then I stumbled across your videos and I saw that, you had done a pretty good job all by yourself, finding the same stuff that I had found also. And I've been following you ever since, man. And yeah, very, very psyched
cool.
on your material.
That's awesome because I found a lot of people that are like that. They're on the similar paths and they found a lot of similar stuff, and then they come to all these same ideas. A lot of people getting the same downloads, like and like thinking up that Lightcraft stuff, and then they start researching it and going and finding stuff on it, and they're like, oh, well, here's one of the only people and the only channels talking about this stuff. Let's jump on and share some, discussions. And I meet all kinds of people that have done different research and have no different kinds of stuff down different avenues. That's stuff that I haven't gone down yet. So
True. I guess also the other thing I wanted to emphasize also would be just the fact that you were very much about the physics. You were very much about actually getting into like, this is real physics. We're not talking about any of this. I don't want to disparage the people that want to believe in the electric universe or any of these other guys that are on YouTube. But if you really start to dig down, you're going to start to find a lot of, I don't want to call them, let's just say I'll be polite and I'll end it there. But they're very suspect.
There's a lot of charlatans that play off
Yes.
people's stupidity and lack of knowledge of the field and stuff.
Right.
And I think that
right, and they don't realize that these people are just trying to get their own views and pad their own audience, and that's unfortunately what it usually comes down to.
Right. There's a lot of people that are in this. Like, I've had people come to me and like, oh, you must be making a ton of money off this, and I'm like, dude, I haven't figured out a way to monetize it because that's not what I'm focused on. I'm just focused on the information, and I use this as like a channel to get it out. And because I did that so genuinely, and I've always paid attention to that, is why I have 100,000 subscribers. It's nothing. If I just tried to market myself and I did it that way, I probably wouldn't have this audience. It's like
right.
So and then I don't get a lot of people watching it live. We broke 200 today, but we didn't break crazy numbers.
Yeah,
but again, this stuff is it goes above a lot of people's levels of their, how much can you sit through with this stuff? Some of this stuff is like, oh my God, there's so much to learn. And
it becomes overwhelming at some point for a lot of people where they're like, oh my God, I not
3 hours,
only,
and we just we haven't even scratched the surface. We just mentioned we mentioned things that's going to take you days and a days of research to go.
Oh yeah. It's not only do you need to have an undergrad in physics, you're going to have to then go through all this material and start to try to comprehend it on your own.
And then it's easier to call us whackpots and say that, oh, this is, it's easier to say this is bullshit and walk the other way and stuff. But it compare us with the other charlatans like David Wilcox, who's he's got it all figured out. It was all Arion and those stealth blimps, man. You watch his latest video, but
right. Meanwhile, they're the ones selling the actual junk just to get the views and get people in.
Yeah, I got to get some junk to sell. And speaking of which, I got some UFO 3D prints we're working on. I'm going to show those real quick and before we end. And I posted this on Twitter earlier so people could check it out. We got the TR3B, you know, designed, and then we got this. We're working on these prints right now. We're gonna do a couple modifications of this, but this is the first prototype, this little green one. But I'm gonna start trying to get some stuff to sell as part of the membership deals, to get more people signed up, so I can monetize this and find a way to start funding more cool research and more cool videos and cool projects and interviews and all the stuff that I want to do.
Right on.
Anyways, I want to end the stream tonight because I do have to wake up and go to work tomorrow and keep up with my regular day job. Don't quit your day job, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to keep up with that. And please join the after party right now. And we'll catch you later, guys. Thanks for watching. I have to cut it here before we go on past 3 hours, man. People get they're like, 3-hour video, dude. Too much. All right. Thanks, guys. And we're going to dig more into these links. I think there's a big link between, but basically I really think that there's a huge link between these you know, transatmospheric vehicles, this Leak Marabou stuff, and some of these more advanced, you know, craft. I really think there's more here, and I can't wait to find it and dig into more of this physics, because the more I learn, the more I realize, holy crap, there's some really smart people working on some really smart stuff out there, and it doesn't need you know, classification. It just needs you to just keep people busy and preoccupied with other nonsense, and they won't pay attention to this stuff, because it is like education